Live from iRacing's virtual Five Flag Speedway in Pensacola, Florida, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to RaceSpotTV's coverage of the 2023 iRacing Winter Derby. Well, the iRacing special events calendar rolls on into the end of November, and we're happy that you're spending this Friday evening with us on RaceSpotTV. Alongside myself, Evan Pasoko, joined by Joe Peak in the broadcast booth. Our producer downstairs, Dustin Allis, is bringing us to you. And Joe, we are back at the home of the Snowball Derby tonight for one of the last big oval events on the iRacing special events calendar, as we're going short track racing here this afternoon.
Exactly, and a big event in the real world, and certainly has attracted some big names out here. This is going to be a serious test for the drivers because we have things like the Daytona 500 and stuff like that, which obviously is its own challenge, but you look at that, all that stuff compared to this. This is a short track. It's only half a mile. The speeds are still high. It's hard to get away from one another, and it's highly specialized, especially with these super late models. But obviously, we've got the Chili Bowl after this for even shorter short track racing on the dirt. But this one is a good introduction to the style.
It really is, and there's plenty of oval and stock car racing sprinkled throughout that calendar there, but nothing really compares toe-to-toe with this Winter Derby, right? We've been to the Bristol Motor Speedway, but again, even that track in those NASCAR Cup Series cars, not what we're going to see here this afternoon in the super late models. So it really is a unique event on the calendar, and let's talk about it. Open and fixed setup races available throughout the weekend tonight. You're going to be watching the top split of the open races available here tonight. Drivers will have 4 tire sets available to them over the course of tonight's 300-lap race. If necessary, 3 attempts at a green-white checker finish will be there at the end. 5-minute qualifying session just starting now. Before we get underway with these 300 laps, Joe, we talk about these super late models, one of the most fun cars to drive on the surface. But if you're a fan of stock car and short track racing in the real world, I think that applies to that as well.
And these are really a staple of most every short track, especially over on the east and the southeast. You see these everywhere. And honestly, for those not familiar, think of sort of NASCAR stock cars, but a little wider, little lower slung, and just ridiculous amounts of power underneath them. And then stick them on nothing but short tracks. I mean, it's a blast, but they are really difficult to master. You definitely have to be really light with your right foot, have to be good with your steering, and these cars are probably going to really kind of separate the wheat from the chaff.
We take a live look in at the qualifying session now. We'll talk a lot about all of these top competitors that we'll be seeing over the course of this race. Big names from the ranks of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, past and present. Many drivers through the Road to Pro ladder, and of course, many drivers who call these short tracks and these super late model races home. Going to be here as that 5-minute session ticks to a close, and we are about ready to go racing for the last asphalt race of this special events calendar. So let's head trackside and take a look at your Race Spot starting grid. It is Ryan Kuhn on pole position, his 15.897 just enough to steal the top spot away from the 4 of Parker Retzlaff, who will start in second. Tracy Petter, a tie for the number 2 spot. He'll end up in third after Retzlaff put the time down first. It means that the 6 of Petter's on the inside of road 2 alongside Rocky Boyd III. Then it's Bailey Dutton rolling off from the number 5 position alongside Blake Thornburg in P6.
Then it's Chase Pierce in 7th, followed by Cade McClenny in the 8th position. Next row sees Garrett Maines on the inside, another familiar one for the Coke Series drivers. Nathan Lyons will be starting in 10th. Mitchell Dranowski will be P11. Rounding out your top 12, you've got Mark Keteman.
Look at number 13 spot tonight goes to Nathan Coaster, with Joel Smith starting in 14th. Ryan Zimma and Justin Crow will make up row number 8, with Dallas Pataska in 17th and Steele Langford in 18th.
Then you head off to Wesley Parker on the inside of the next row. Garrett Lowe going to be starting on 20th position. Timmy Pacioli in the 21st spot. Jonathan Adkins starts 22nd tonight. He'll have Tyler Davala behind him. And then Matt Brinson starting 24th.
And that is the last car to take in time into qualifying, so the rest going to be based on provisionals with Boyd Hogan, Dalton Collins, Casey Tucker, Jake Fisher, Brian Narducci, and Trevor Trago through the 30th spot. It'll look top to bottom at your race spot starting grid. Of course, those back six based on iRating provisional because they did not put down a time at qualifying. And a way to keep in mind is this is the top split race, meaning the highest iRated drivers of those participating in this time slot here tonight. Their car numbers on timing and scoring will be dictated based on iRating. So number 1 going to be the number 1 seed car. That's Ryan Kuhn on pole position. And the number 30, the lowest iRated driver, Trevor Trago, who will also start down in 30th. So just keep that in mind as we pace around this Five Flag Speedway, Joe. We talk about this racetrack, half a mile in length, 15 degrees of corners, but man, does it feel like a quick 15-second lap time.
Exactly. It goes by so fast. But not only that, the thing that I think is most distinct about this track is that they are long corners, so they're very short straightaways. Why is that important? Well, you're basically constantly steering throughout the entire lap. You have very little time that you're actually holding the wheel straight. That means that the tires are going to take a pounding, and you have very little time to relax.
These races also a little bit of a battle of attrition. We'll see if that plays a factor in tonight's race as well. 300 laps is a lot of opportunities. If you count ins and out of corners, that's about 1,200 opportunities to make a mistake here tonight. We'll see who stands on top in about 2 hours' time when we drop the checkered flag. The pace car going to dive down to pit road this time. The field is in the hands of the number 1 of Ryan Kuhn. Let's go racing in Pensacola. It's a good start for Kuhn. He defends up front. Meanwhile, trouble towards the rear of the field. A half spin. A couple of cars check up. Trago drops back. Collins drops back. No yellow, though. We stay green as Ryan Kuhn leads the opening 2 laps of this race.
That was all down to McClenny in the 10. He was the one that started to spin. Honestly, happened kind of on his own, but then those behind him had to check up. Did make some contact, but as we see, nobody got turned around. We stay green.
Early up front, race leaders trying to find a little bit of separation, some side-by-side through the midfield, but right there, that's your top 8 or so. Single filed out. Retzlaff got cooked on the start. Kuhn got him pretty quickly when the pace car dived off and away. The 4 car had a bit of a bobble. I thought maybe Petter was going to make a challenge at the end of lap 1. He did not, and they will stay single file through the top 5. First side-by-side fight there. The 3 of Garrett Maines around the inside of Rocky Boyd. He'll take that spot away, and Blake Thornburg follows through, give it to the 12, and why not? Mitchell Dranowski joins in on the fun. He'll also make the pass. It's down 3 spots in a single lap for Rocky Boyd III.
As important as track position is tonight, there's going to have to be some give and take such as that, especially with how long the race is. 300 laps around here is a long time. So if you find someone's being aggressive behind you, it's a good idea to let them go as we got a spinner on the front stretch, and there's our first yellow.
First caution of the afternoon, and Thornburg is the one around. He was just on the move forward. If he'd made a pass inside of the top 10, and now the car is around, and looks like there is some front-end damage on that number 12 Chevrolet. So it'll bring us the first caution flag of the afternoon. It comes at lap number 7. Front-end damage not terminal on the 12 car, but certainly not advantageous at this point in the race. We'll take a look to see what happened to the car that was running in 7th position when all of this started. And as he came off of turn number 4, just got away from him kind of out of nowhere. And yeah, with those walls right there on the inside to protect the pit lane, Joe, there's not really much of an opportunity for him to try to catch that race car. And that thing was lined up off of 4 to nose first into the inside wall pretty quick.
It really was, and that's probably just from getting on the throttle with a little bit too much steering input off the corner. Even though it's almost halfway down the straight that it started to spin, that's a good example of what I was talking about, where you're just doing so much turning, and the corners are so long that it takes that long to really straighten the car out. And well, by that point, it was already loose on him, just couldn't quite save it. He's in pit lane right now, taking a bit of the repairs. Now, they do have those 4 sets of tires total in the race, so he's got basically 2 more times to try and change the tires, as he's going to get out just in time to beat the pace car. But other than that, he's got to really try and hold on to them, because you don't really want to use them up early.
Here's the perspective of the car that was in line behind him as Jordowski is able to drive away from that. And again, just shows you how quickly that car looped around on him and spun out. Again, these super late models clocking in at more than 550 horsepower, but when they weigh in just shy of 3,000 pounds, they've got that fully adjustable rear suspension and the offset weight distribution of a straight rail chassis. So these things are kind of a mix between a modified and Xfinity Series car. They're bad. That's why they're so much fun to drive. But when you do give these drivers that horsepower, that ability to drive them on the corner, and not a car that just kicks and goes, well, drivers know the way to challenge, but it can lead the incidents that you just saw there. And not a way very similar, kind of near self-in-house self-in, and the only two laps of this race, that first one did not lead the other, the second one did, and it's all the way side here into the moment. Pace car on the way, another good jump off, and we're back underway.
Last lap not going to have much of an answer for him in this one, but he is getting pretty quickly down into second place, which is honestly what he needs to do. It's Dutton who's really in a bad spot here. Outside line probably not going to be the place to be early on. That may change late in the race. He's still fighting with Petter down low.
They really hug that pit wall on the entry to 1 and the exit at turn number 4. Some of the drivers going to dip those left side tires below the white line, center off, to try to get those cars to rotate. It's Dutton who's better, though, through 3 and 4 in the battle with Petter. But the 6 car going to keep a nose right there on the left rear quarter panel, now pulling even, and a spinner behind. There's smoke under the flag stand and a car into the wall. Off in 1, it's Timmy Pacioli.
He's having trouble even getting it turned around. It's so narrow with that pit wall down to the inside, and he had quite a tumble. Interestingly enough, it was McClenny once again that was involved in this one. This time, though, he was the car behind and really didn't have much place to go. He was kind of pinned to the outside wall.
I think it started by the flag stand. That's where we saw the smoke, and was a bit surprised to see the 17 all the way down in turn number 1. So the second look and to tell the tale for us and see what happened to Pacioli. He was in 15th position. You mentioned Gabe McClenny. He was scored 16th by the start-finish line. So it was a midfield battle where those cars had yet to have the opportunity to single file out like we had seen from cars inside of the top 5, inside of the top 10. And you wonder, is it going to be the culprit of somebody getting a little bit loose on their own, or was it that side-by-side battle that ended up taking out those cars? Pacioli obviously has the front-end damage on the car that we saw. I don't see a ton of damage on the 10 car, so maybe not that bad for the other. And, oh, there's the touch, and up and over. Pacioli, 3 and 4 times he rolls off down to turn 1 before it lands on all fours. And it looked like from that angle, Joe might have just pushed up a bit off of the corner and squeezed that 10 car into the wall. It didn't look like there was a lot more room that McClenny could have given.
Yeah, it's exactly what happened. He just drifted up a little bit high. You've really got to pay attention to your spotter. And when they say a car high, you need to leave that space, because as we saw, it can go horribly wrong. I wasn't kidding when I said he went for a ride. And amazingly, the 17, after some repairs, is back out and still running.
It's impressive. Here's the onboard look, and yeah, the gyro's going to hold it straight, but that's 1 and, all right, only two trips around, and it lands on all fours. That may also explain why it was having a bit of difficulty turning, but that car stays in this race, and funny enough, McClenny, who was the one who got pinched into the outside wall, doesn't even decide to come down to pit road for repairs at all. 10 car feels like he's fine. He used the sloped nose of that 10 to kind of flip that 17 car, and he feels like he avoided too much damage, and he'll keep it onto the racetrack and roll on through. Part of the attrition is keeping your car clean, lasting 300 laps. Our second yellow of the night going to fall to the wayside, only 18 laps in. Still a long way to go in the Sunshine State. Pace car off it in. It's another good jump for Kuhn. Retzlaff as best as he's looked all night, but only good enough for second as he dives down into one.
Yeah, you got to watch out for those slope noses that you mentioned. Any bump and run is probably not going to just send someone up the racetrack. It's going to lift that rear end and going to have some pretty dire results. So as we get it going at this stage, honestly, I'm going to keep my eyes on the 1 and the 4 there up at the front, because they pretty consistently seem to be able to lock down those first and second positions. And once again, we got that battle for third.
Battle for third. You see Pataska a little bit further back battling with the 6 of Tracy Petter. There's a lot of contact there. So funning going on all over the racetrack. That one nearly turned into a wreck back here in the battle for 6th. So on each other's door for third. Same thing for P6. And I'm sure same thing for a lot of those battles through the midfield, as it seems like Pataska wins that fight for the moment. He's 7th and pulls a bit ahead of, that's the 6 car up top of Tracy Petter now, who's slipping it back on the top side.
Yeah, still got some good wheel-to-wheel here. Remember that 27 is his I rating compared to everybody else. So honestly, Nathan Lyons doing an excellent job up here in 11th currently, as he's going to be able to get to the bottom with just enough of a gap.
Couple of sparks fly off of the outside wall. These drivers cutting it close on the corner exit. You look back up front. Kuhn still leads, but Retzlaff applying the pressure for that number 1 position. They're trying to pull away from the ongoing battle for third behind them. That gray 24 car topside is Bailey Dutton, who refuses to go away. And that 3 of Garrett Maines has tried and tried again, but so far unable to clear for third. And it's got the 20 of Chase Pierce, next car in line on the bottom, getting a little impatient. He's given a couple of shots to the back end of the 3 car, almost trying to will the inside line through. There's another touch there, but credit to Button on the outside. The only driver on the outside right now holding strong. The 24 sim ability machine will not go away, but what this is doing is it is allowing Kuhn and Retzlaff to pull away from the top 2 spots, so they got to figure out this battle for third soon, or they're going to be a mile behind the leaders before they know it.
Yeah, it's not going to go well for them if they try to keep this up. Somebody's going to have to give in. But again, real credit to the 24, like you said. I did not expect the outside line to be able to hold this early. It does look fairly rubbered in from what we could see of the warm-up and whatnot, and it doesn't look like there's too many marbles on that line. We'll see if that keeps it up, though, because he's got nobody else to help him up there, and the marbles will start to build.
Big slide from both cars there. They hit, but it was pretty flush on the door, and there's the 20 interjecting again. It appears with a bit of a shunt to the back of Maines. The race leaders now 9/10 of a second ahead of the battle for third on the back. It's the biggest lead they've had all night long. 4 sets of tires is plenty for a race of this length, but cautions and when drivers decide to use those tires going to be the bigger determining factor in the strategy tonight. But I'm seeing a lot of counter steering, mainly out of the 24, Joe. That's just because Bailey Dutton's got bright yellow gloves, so it's easier for me to see him than inside of the cab of Garrett Maines' car. But with all the counter steering I'm seeing, so cars kind of seesawing at the wheel, meaning the car's not sticking and pointing straight off the corner. It seems like they're pushing pretty aggressively for this early in the race.
Yeah, which I'm not sure if that's good or bad in this situation, because that push is just going to get worse the more you wear out those fronts. But like we were talking about, very powerful cars, it's easy to burn up the rear. So maybe they're just trying to use that understeer to help try and keep the car a little bit more even across, help it just slide on both sides.
Garrett Maines has got the snowflakes on the back of his number 3 Chevy Camaro, so he's in the spirit of the Winter Derby, and he is trying to clear the 24 Dutton up high. Again, Dutton may be slightly higher stakes. He feels like if he can't clear here, how many cars are going to pass him on the bottom? The good news is there's a bit of a gap that's opened up behind the 3 and behind the 20. So if for whatever reason Dutton can't get this spot, there is an opportunity to tuck in line. We've seen drivers try to get low as soon as they can. It's not going to matter, though. Caution behind, and a couple of cars facing the wrong way in turn number 2. That's Casey Tucker, who drives away. Well, it is Tyler Davala, and looks like Justin Crow also spun around, so 3-car incident on lap 34.
And I think this did start with Tucker actually up towards the front. He was way ahead of those other two. Kind of curious how he got them involved and what started this whole thing. But this is honestly the first true multi-car incident that we've seen. Obviously the 10 as well as Pacioli came together earlier on, but the 10 kind of drove away from that one easily. This one definitely seems to have captured a few victims.
Yeah, this one again comes from the midfield. Last incident I think we saw was originated around P15. Tucker 18th at the time of the contact, and there's the touch there. It's some assistance courtesy of the 18 car behind him. Tucker into the corner, got a little bit of help from Mark Keteman, and then the other drivers collected there on later. The first thing I noticed on that clip, Joe, is that Casey wasn't on the bottom. I don't know if that really counts as kind of teasing the 18 car, right? There's a half a lane on the bottom. Does he go for it? I feel like you'd be a little bit more comfortable if you were just all the way down to not even make him think about it. But to Casey's defense, that's kind of the line I've seen out of the 14 all night, is not all the way down, maybe 3/4 to a whole lane up off of the bottom. So he was doing what he normally did. But again, there's definitely space below for the 18, and I think if the 18 kept seeing the hole lap after lap, eventually he's going to bite.
Absolutely, and this is a deceptive track because usually you think, oh, you know, I want to try and get the run off the corner. No, the fastest way around here is honestly a pretty shallow entry, and you mentioned it a little bit earlier. They dive it right down to the pit exit wall on the outside of it, down in that first corner. So yeah, you want to try and close up that gap on the way into there. It may be the way that he feels comfortable, but he's going to have to watch out for that because clearly it does leave him vulnerable.
So another incident in the midfield. Race leader is going to be unaffected by this one, as the only pit service that happens is towards the rear of the field with Matt Brinson coming to pit road. Nobody else in so far. Your top 23 cars have yet to come down pit road. 24th on back, some of the names that have been involved in incidents to this point. Green flag back in the air. It's another good start for the one car, and Retzlaff has to make a big dive to block the 23, and it shovels that 24 at Dutton way up the hill in 1 and 2. He's going to be 3 wide down the back straightaway, and Dutton going to go from top 5 to 13th in a blink of an eye.
Absolutely dire for him. If he thought it was bad trying to fight that long around the outside up at the front, now he's going to have to do it from the back. At least he has the experience because he did find a spot to get back 2 wide here. He's alongside the 28 of Zima, I believe, at this stage. But man, that made the night a whole lot harder. While I said you have to have some give and take, you don't want to give that much. You want to try and at least stay within the top 10.
And a caution will come out behind again. It is the mid to back field that causes the headaches, and the spinner is on the back straightaway. It's Blake Thornburg around. The number 12 car scored in 25th position at the moment of the incident. If that name sounds familiar, well, we talked about him not all that long ago. 12 car with some existing front end damage on that car from a previous incident, and he gets involved in this one. We'll take a second look at everything that happened. First, the restart. Watch Retzlaff. Big block to the inside to shut the door on the 3, and then he checks up. That's what shuffles the 24 up the road. It was Maines that got such a good start, Joe, that Retzlaff had to throw kind of a half block to keep his spot, and then that accordioned back a couple of rows.
Yeah, it honestly spooked the 24 because I think he could have gotten away without having to make that bobble, but he just was afraid something was happening there, pulled him out of the way, and by that time you're in the corner. I mean, these things are on a trajectory, so it was hard to try and reel it back in. He's very lucky he didn't actually go all the way out to the wall. This one, interestingly, started, though, from the 12, touching the apron from what I could see, and just kind of got sent the rest of the way around by the car behind. You'll see it right here. He starts it and then gets finished off by the yellow and black machine that just couldn't get woed up in time.
Yeah, tough break, and Thornburg going to bring it to pit road this time out of the yellow, so some damage repairs going to be ongoing for the 12. No surprise, because it seemed like that race car was non-cooperative at least going into that corner to kick all of that off. So it's a bit of a rough night for Thornburg, the number 6 driver on the grid earlier in this race. He's dropped way to the tail. Of course, Cade McClenny started 8th in this race. He's fallen to 21st. So there has been a handful of drivers already who have had pretty good starting positions, shuffle themselves out to the rear. What that does mean, though, is that if you've got goers, then you've got comers, and there's drivers who have made up many positions in this race. How about Wesley Parker? Started 19th. He's up 10 spots to P9. And Dallas Pataska started 17th. He's up 11. He's the biggest mover on the night in P6. So drivers in the midfield avoiding that chaos and taking opportunities to gain some ground early.
Not too surprised at Dallas getting as many positions as he has. I've been watching him over the years, and definitely a very skilled driver, a variety of different types of racing. I often have seen him over in the majors as well, racing in just about everything, including mimicking this very event over in the majors before on top of it. In fact, I think he did pretty good in that one from what I can recall, but it's been a couple years, so I'll have to go dig that up. Regardless, this is going to serve him well if he's both got the skills to try and stay out of trouble and also be able to make those passes. Honestly, those two combined make for quite an effective combination, as he's just shown.
We'll see if he can continue his march to the field and how we shake out on this restart. Ryan Kuhn still has led every lap tonight. It'll be 46 straight as he leads to the line, but here comes Garrett Maines inside of Retzlaff, and for the first time, we got a battle on our hands for P2.
Maines with a great start there and a little bit of a slide behind them, I think, from Pierce, who just couldn't get the car to hold up, so he's going to lose some positions. But yeah, this is what the 3 has been waiting for all night. Like I said before, it seemed like Retzlaff was just able to solidify that second place every single time. Not sure what the difference was this time.
He had gotten better and better every time, and now he is clear. Through to second goes Maines, and on the inside, the number 9, Mitchell Drunowski also drives through. And just like that, Parker Retzlaff, who competed regularly this season in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, finds himself down 2 spots in this iRacing Winter Derby, still maintaining a good running spot in P4. It allows a couple of cars up front to single file out. First battle you see there, the 15 car to the outside, a Nathan Coaster.
Yeah, so that's one of our battles here inside the top 10. Dranowski, by the way, we were talking about big movers, up 8 positions and into 3rd. Stunning start for him. We're only 51 laps into this one.
And I would say his 8 positions are weighted better, right? He started this race in 11th. He's up to 3rd, so 7 of those 8 spots are top 10 positions. That's a pretty good weighted average for his positions gained. Not that your plus 10s and your 11s in the midfield aren't, but he's passing the fastest of race cars, and maybe Dranowski is somebody to look at as this race continues on. You're seeing that 15 of Coaster on the outside, still doing everything he can to hang on to Wesley Parker on the bottom. Wesley got a bit of the curb with the inside apron there that time. Looked like it upset the 19 a little bit. That car's pushing on entry, and it's getting awfully close to the 15, making me a little bit nervous at times, including right there off of turn 4. But the 15 holds his ground, trying to do everything he can to either fight off the 19 car or get in behind him if he should so yield the spot. The 19 finally gets him, and as expected, that gap was quickly filled. Now he's got to deal with Nathan Lyons.
Yeah, not only Lyons, but they've got Tracy Petter back there. Garrett Lowe is in there. These drivers know that if they can just stay to that car ahead, they can keep demoting this car, and they've essentially got a free lunch. Is behind them. We got a big wreck with multiple cars.
We'd seen a couple of few car incidents, and this is a big mess in turn number 4. Dutton involved, Keteman involved, Joel Smith, another one of the drivers, Blake Thornburg again involved in this one. The 12's got some magnets somewhere in that car to just attract all of the attention as he can't catch a break. Of course, he was late into that accident. It started, I think, with either the 28 or the 18. Those were the first 2 cars that I saw get out of shape, and it was again in the teens, right? That's why midfield, bit of a scary place to be, because it seems where all these incidents are coming from, and this might be a complicated one. Looking at a couple of these angles, we'll wait to see it and talk about it, but the car who gets spun is going to be Ryan Zima in the 28 car, and it's going to look like Mark Keedeman just hits him, Joe, but I'm looking at Bailey Dutton behind. I'm not too entirely convinced that the 18 wasn't pushed into that car up the road and kind of assisted, if you will, by the 24 behind him. It's almost like those three cars contacted each other at the same time, and all of that forward momentum just got forced up into the 28, who was the odd man out and got turned.
Yeah, I think you might be onto something, and that's just kind of the nature of short track racing. Is you have to be comfortable riding close to one another because you have to be there to try and pick up any sort of opportunity. You can't be sitting multiple car lengths back and hope to get to move forward. Also, can we give some credit to Jake Fisher and Steele Langford? Both managed to escape that wreck right in the thick of it. Great avoidance from both of them.
Both jumped to the outside and found a gap. There was a lot of impressive driving. A couple of drivers thought they had a near miss and got some contact, and then Jonathan Adkins had almost gotten clear. He got a pretty good hit to the right front. Let's watch. They're going to go high and low. Here's the good part. 26 and the 16, they go high, and on the bottom, you'll see a couple of those late hits up along the inside wall. Again, you got to have a pit wall to protect the pit lane for the active racetrack, but what it means is if you get loose off of 4, not a lot of place to save that race car before you nose in, or in this example, not a lot of places for cars to go when you have a multi-car pileup. So that one, I think, at least involved about a half a dozen race cars total. They all pick up a little bit of damage, and the stop-start nature of this iRacing Winter Derby continues to the lap 60 markers. So slowly making progress through this 300-lap, 150-mile contest. And if you're just jumping in, happy that you're with us on RaceSpotTV. Ryan Kuhn, your pole sitter, has been in control all race long, but for the first time tonight, Garrett Maines in the 3 will line up to the outside of the front row for a restart in second. It means Mitchell Janowski's to the inside of row 2 and third. Green flag in the air. We're back underway. Kuhn defends for the lead. Maines looks to the inside, doesn't go for it.
Oh, man, he's hungry not just for second. He wants to try and take the lead away from Kuhn. But look at this. Retzlaff's going to try and fight him back as we got another spinner.
Chase Pierce up the track, saves it, but the yellow comes out. Barney was watching the battle with us and quick on the trigger to put the yellow flag out, as it was P5 Chase Pierce who got turned from behind. It was a quick save that may have involved some additional contact. Unfortunately, though, the yellow came out before that, and it will slow things down. It might be good news for the 20 in terms of he might not lose as many positions on the racetrack, but I don't think it's going to matter, as there he comes to pit road, likely looking for maybe some damage repair, and if you're out the back, might as well get some fuel and change out those tires.
Yeah, he definitely got a big shove from behind to start that one off, and got another big shove to turn him back around. So I don't see a meatball flag, so I don't think he's got extra damage from getting tipped back straight. Here it is right there, and that's always dangerous because that's on the corner of the car. If you get the suspension damaged, oftentimes that can send you down pit lane and be forced to go multiple laps down.
Hopefully, for his sake, he's able to get away with that one. The car that got some additional contact, I think, was the 13 of Rocky Boyd. Rocky Boyd, sorry, was the car that made the initial contact. It was the 19 car who Wesley Parker made that secondary contact up the hill. I think looking at the right front, Parker's car looks pretty good. So I would say, all things considered, it's not that bad. That could have been a lot worse for all the cars involved.
Absolutely, although I have a feeling at least one of the drivers would disagree with you on that one, because now he's got a really hard task in front of him. But yeah, the 19 didn't really do anything wrong in that situation. He was trying to get the car wound up. He thought the outside was the place to go, and it just, unfortunately, the car slid up in front of him at the last moment. But watch out for Garrett Maines here. Man, that was an aggressive dive to try and see if he could get underneath of Kuhn right at the beginning of the race. And I guarantee you, Ryan was watching that and knows that it's coming this time.
And it's interesting that Garrett made no attempt to pull alongside the one car, right, and kind of challenge to beat him on the outside. Maines very quickly got right on the bumper of the one car and then flashed the nose to the inside, Kuhn, to his credit, didn't bite. That also makes you nervous because if you don't buy it and he goes for it, there's not enough room for 2 cars on the inside line in one. But it was very clear what Mainz' objective was, and that was to pull in behind the 1 car right away and then try to get underneath him as they went off to turn number 1. Seems like he does not want to fight on the outside. Of course, if he gets stuck up there, it could open up the door for, say, that 4 to Parker Retzlaff, who's now on the inside of row 2. He could jump back down on the bottom, same with the 13 Rocky Boyd. So although the outside hasn't been too bad tonight, seems to still not be the preferred line. We'll see what Garrett Mainz can do on this restart. It's all going to happen quick. Pace car off and in, green flag in the air. It's not a bad start for Mainz, but it's a beautiful start for Retzlaff. Here comes the 4 car right back to the inside, and he'll fight with that 3 of Mainz for second.
Yeah, sometimes that 3rd place can be a bit of a gift in this sense, and this time he gave it right back to the 3. Now here's the question, can Mainz find an opening? Well, he doesn't have to. We got a caution.
It'll be a quick position swap because the 12 car is around in the corner. Thornburg, again, one of them. Looks like Matt Brinson and Jonathan Adkins may have had a more engaged role in that accident as they were the ones all the way around. We wind it back, and there's your touch. Just a couple of cars stacked up on each other as they went off and into the corner, and the accordion effect spun the 12 car around. Pretty decent impact into the top, and then after that, it was just everybody trying to avoid the 1 car spin that collected the other 3.
Yeah, sometimes when it's not your night, it's just not your night, and Blake has been having a miserable time out there. Multiple wrecks. It's kind of impressive he's still going on. 22 also just kind of chucking the car into the scene. Like I said, didn't have much place to go, but ironically, he was the one that started it. He got into the back of the 12.
The unfortunate thing there, if you're Blake Thornburg, is that you probably could not attempt to be involved in that many accidents consecutively. It's just like, to your point, it's not your night. It's not your night, and it has gone downhill pretty quick for Blake after he started in a pretty promising P6 position. As these incidents continue to rack up, we see drivers more so frequently coming to pit road. I mean, this time we got Zima, Keteman, Dutton, Davala down pit road, Thornburg, Atkins, so plenty of drivers down pit road for some continued service. So far, nobody has retired from this race yet, although Tyler Davala is 20 laps down, Bailey Dutton is 12 down, and Mark Keteman 1 lap down in 28th position. But nobody to the garage quite yet. No one's pulled it all the way off to the infield, but we're starting to see some torn-up sheet metal early in this winter derby.
I mean, it wouldn't be short track racing without some beat up cars. You're just going to have to expect that out there. A little bit surprised at the number of cars that were or are up front that have all that. Usually you'll see them stay a little bit cleaner, at least longer into the race, as you might have some who try and fly back forward after getting into trouble. But yeah, there's definitely been some aggression that's notched up. I wonder if with how many yellows we've been having recently, Evan, drivers are starting to feel the pressure to make moves more quickly because they're afraid it is going to turn into a caution fest.
It's almost counterproductive, right? You would think that if there's a lot of yellows early, the obvious solution is to don't be as aggressive, and then you're not going to have as many yellows. The problem is you get concerned then that if we're not going to have green flag runs and we're just going to keep having yellows, well, it's going to be more tricky to make up spots. I got to get spots now. Counterintuitive. It is the duality of a race car driver, is trying to balance all of those factors. And again, a long way still to go in this race, but we are creeping in on the lap number 100 mark. Again, Kuhn, your pole sitter, number 1 seeded driver with a 9,617 I rated, still in front. Green flag in the air. It's a better start this time for Retzlaff, but not good enough to seal off the bottom yet, although a beautiful 1 and 2 will allow him to clear Garrett Mainz, and Retzlaff defends in second.
Yeah, he wanted that spot back. He doesn't want to let Garrett Mainz to hold on to that P2, especially considering he's already been trying to attack for the lead a little bit here and there. Janowski, I think he's going to be able to get 4th, maybe over Boyd. Yeah, it looks like he's clear now for that one.
Clear for that spot. Top 4 single file. Battle is on for 5th. The 13 of Rocky Boyd to the outside. The 27 and 8th of Lyons to the inside of the racetrack. It's the highest we've seen Lyons so far tonight. He's almost all the way clear. Now he will be as they head off to turn 3. First time tonight. He sits in P5.
Coming around here towards the 1/3 of the mark of the race, approaching, as you mentioned. So we're starting to get into the thick of it. It has gone by quickly, at least for the first 50 laps or so, but it's slowed down significantly. So let's cross our fingers that we can get some green flag racing in here. Boy, Rocky Boyd, though, just dropping, well, like a rock here, as the 11 is going to be able to get past Pataska through, and now Garrett Lowe is not going to let him in.
He's not going to make life easy for that 13 car up top, but I don't know if Rocky Boyd's going to ask for the handout either. He's going to do everything he can to seal off the 5. Almost did it that time on the exit, and I think Lowe got just enough positioning to kind of shake off that challenge from the 13, and now that he's pulled alongside, again, it's going to be a long fight for Boyd. And to your point you made early, Joe, you said, topside is probably not the place you want to be. It hasn't been bad tonight, but I think that's the smart move right there. I think Rocky Boyd could have maybe made that more difficult for the 5 and drag that on for a couple more laps, but what are you going to accomplish? You're going to burn off your tires a little bit more, and this early in the race, you're probably going to bring that 15 a coaster up and get him to the inside and just continue to repeat the process. Maybe not a bad decision, looking back at some of those long side-by-side fights we've seen so far tonight, to give up the spot, get in line, and then try to get some laps under your belt, and that's a mistake there, not what you want. Big hit to the outside wall for Boyd. That had to have caused some right-side damage.
Thankfully, they are pretty sturdy cars, so you can get away with scraping it here and there. Not looking like he's handling any worse right now, so I think he will get away with it. And yeah, I agree with you. I've always kind of been a proponent of, it's not just the fastest driver that wins, it's the smartest driver that also wins. And in these situations, is we see more cars coming out from pit lane there. If you see a gap behind you, sometimes you just have to be willing to give up the battle so that you can win the war later, because yes, you're going to lose time fighting around the outside, but you also lose tire, and you got to think big picture so that you have some tire left later on, especially if the green flag runs do go on for a while.
And I think these drivers would appreciate that as well, as you see some separation up front for the first time in quite some time. Drivers with some space to work as we try to knock out some laps in this 2023 iRacing Winter Derby that Ryan Kuhn has been handily in control of throughout. That battle there with the 17 car, Timmy Pacioli for 16th spot, is to the inside of him, Chase Pierce trying to play defense and protect what is his. Very different night for these two. Pacioli's up 5 spots, Pierce is down 10, so this one a story of comers and goers, as well as intently watching on as that 14 car, Casey Tucker, trying to get back up towards the front after he had a spin earlier on.
And a testament to the speed of that 17 car. Pacioli, remember, did a barrel roll in this race.
Yeah, right there.
And he's still climbing up the field. In fact, fighting hard the long way around on Pierce, proving that the 17, even with some significant damage, has not been slowed down.
Maybe shaved a couple of extra pounds off the car and made it a little bit lighter, a little bit more aerodynamic. I don't know how that affects the downforce on it, but he's doing a good job. But again, on the outside, long game here. Are you going to clear the 20? Are you going to fight and fight and fight and eventually not get the position? We'll see. If anything, for that 17 of Pacioli, there is a benefit of the fact that he did pit after that he had that roll, so he may have put on some fresher Hoosier Racing tires, but maybe a slight advantage over the 20 in that degree. But again, we've seen Pierce and Pacioli both in and out of the pit lane tonight, so it's kind of tough to track without set strategies who has the upper hand. And in the end, it's the inside, and now he's in the outside wall. He got on the fence off of 4, couldn't pull it off, and it stayed on all 4s this time, but Pacioli rides the wall and drops 4 more spots.
Yeah, they're super wide cars. You compared them to a modified, the wheels stick out extremely far, and they can try and climb that wall, which is what it just did. So yeah, as soon as you hit, it's not, sometimes it isn't just a simple scrape, it kind of catches it, and that really bit him. But he's lucky he's still running, he's only in 20th.
And these cars are not symmetrical as we take a look at this big mess behind P5, right? It's not a symmetrical car like a Cup Series stock car is these days. The right side of the race car sticks out much more on that driver's side A-pillar. The body extends way further out from that A-pillar than it does on your driver's side A-pillar. So it can be a little bit deceptive on how wide these cars are, and that would explain that incident there, and also why we've seen so many cars get into the outside wall on multiple occasions tonight. The lead battle in this side-by-side bout is Garrett Lowe in 7th and Dallas Pataska in 8th position. They are the lead of this train. Behind them, it's Coaster and Boyd side-by-side. Behind them, it is Petter and Lankford side-by-side, but you'd think we're fresh off of a race start with how in formation that group of 6 is.
And we've had a change for the lead. The 4 managed to get the inside of Ryan Kuhn and took it away pretty swiftly, honestly. That might go back to the give and take that I was talking about, that Ryan saw that coming, saw that there was a gap behind and figured, if you want it, go ahead and take it.
So that pass happens on 95, and now a spinner, and is it a save for the 27 of Nathan Lyons? Caution flag is out. I think the track cam of ours may have been a victim, but that's about it. What a save from Nathan Lyons, who got turned from P5.
I mean, you couldn't have planned that any better if you wanted to. Straight over the camera for the 27. That's one for the highlight reel, and an amazing catch here. Got a big chunk of help, though, on the turn into the corner. Along with 2 wide underneath him, still saved it and didn't hit another car.
That's impressive stuff, as this will bring us to the 1/3 mark in this race, and for the first time tonight, pit stops are wholesale. Race leaders down pit road. Watch the toes of the crew members as they trickle down into the pit boxes and look for service. This will change the running order up front. Of course, Retzlaff had just taken the race lead away from Ryan Kuhn 2 laps prior to the yellow flag, as there's a bit of a mistake onto pit road for, I think it was a missed pit stall entry for Chase Pierce. It's going to cost him time, but here's the difference in super late model pit stops is the variance in tires and fuel is massive, and Kuhn, first car off of pit road. Meanwhile, the guy who led the race onto pit road, Retzlaff, came off about P6. So a big variation, and a lot of that, I think, is going to end up coming down to fuel and time in the box. Is clearly a strategy decision made there by Kuhn to prioritize the track position and get out a bit quicker. He only spends 12.6 seconds in the box, whereas Retzlaff, 17.6.
And look at that. We got a whole bunch of drivers that are going to gamble on staying out. Langford, Thronberg, looks like Kuhn. Maines also staying out in the 3. No, excuse me. A bunch of them did come back in. Apologies. So it's only Langford and Thronberg that stayed out on this one. The 26 and the 12 that are going to be starting up towards the front. They want that track position. And Blake has taken tires supposedly maybe about 30 laps ago. That was the last time he pitted. May have been earlier than that. Steele has not. He's still got 100 laps on these tires. How is that going to work out?
It is a bold call for the 26, so he's got nothing. He's got what we had at the start of this race about 50 minutes ago or so. Thordeberg has pitted since then, and then those lead cars ahead of Retzlaff off pit road. So the first 6 off of pit road go for 2 tires. So Kuhn, Maines, Dradowski, Parker, Lowe, and Pataska, they are all on 2 fresh Hoosier Racing tires. And then it was the first car to take 4, Parker Retzlaff. That's why he was in the box for much longer, 17.6 seconds. He is one of very few cars who decided to go wholesale and change all 4 tires. That should give him an advantage, not only over the cars in front of him, but even some cars behind him who also decided to go for 2 only. So let's see what the old tires can do up front. Green flag in the air. It's a good start for Langford. 3 wide, quick for a second. That's not good. Thornburg gets tagged, and he's into the outside wall again.
Wow, big hit on that one. And this wasn't something where he just, checked up the field and got turned that way. He got a decent start, but it was a better start, of course, for Maines on those fresher tires. He tried to force it 3 wide, and poor Blake, I mean, he's got to figure out what Black Cat is in the cockpit with him right now, because I can't believe this stuff keeps happening to him.
It is a tough break, and again, to your point, no major mistake, just older tires and the guys behind you on fresh ones, at least for the right sides, and they got the run, and there's no world in which Garrett Maines is going to say, oh, this guy's got 30-lap older tires, let me yield the spot to him. They went under him. The 12 car, I think, probably could have helped himself out a little bit there and gone a tad wider, but the 1 and the 3 weren't as low as they could have been either, and I think it's just a product of old tires and new tires, and again, the 19 car may also be questioning why, because I think that's the second time Parker has hit the 12 after the 12 has spun this afternoon. Maines a bit confused about what happened with that incident as the drivers discuss in sim. But what that does do is it shakes off some of that defense that Steele Langford had built up, right? He was maybe hoping that the 12 would put up a bit more of a fight with the cars behind to give him a buffer. Instead, Kuhn, Maines, Stradowski, they're going to jump right back up and going to be all over the 26 car for the ensuing restart. Now, granted, Langford going to have the advantage of controlling the restart. He'll decide where do we go. That should give him the advantage through at least 1 and 2, but you see that last pit stop lap again, he has not come down pit road yet tonight, which means that he is going to be way under advantage when it comes to the tires.
Yeah, what he needs to do right now is stick to the inside. Just guard that inside line as good as you can, because he's going to have to force them to go the long way around. That hopefully should make life a little bit harder. We'll see how much these tires count for, because we didn't really get a sense of any green flag laps now. Just that off the start, we saw a few of them obviously could get better traction, try to get inside of the 12 there. But as long as the 26 can make life difficult, that should hopefully keep more spots from going away as quickly.
And the second part of this is watching for Retzlaff. He decided to spend the extra time on pit road to go for the 4-tire change. Because of that, he should have an advantage, but he didn't gain anything on the last restart. You see his bright yellow number 4 car, hard to miss him. He'll still be P7 for this restart, which will be on the inside of row number 4. Lights out on top of the pace car, 26 cars on the lead lap in this race as we are past 1/3 distance in this 2023 iRacing Winter Derby. Evan Pasoko, Joe Peak upstairs with Dustin Allis downstairs in the Race Spot booth. Happy to bring you tonight's coverage as we continue to race into the afternoon here virtually at iRacing's Five Flag Speedway. Pace car down, Langford looking for the jump. He's got it, and it's Maines who gets the upper hand. A quick swipe to take second away from Ryan Kuhn, but for how long? The 1 car looks high, can't do it. Now the 3 sets his sights on the lead to turn 3.
Oh, he got underneath him. That's bad news, and he's just going to give him a little nudge up the road. Good catch by Steele, and that'll keep him from getting spun around. But now the floodgates have been opened. Good night.
Good save by the 26, but it was a no-nonsense move by Maines to dive, make the touch, and get it over with. And now they're going to start to beat up on the 26 car as Langford on the old tires going to struggle topside. Another big winner. That 4 of Retzlaff, 7th to 3rd in a handful of laps. Can he reel down those top 2 cars who did not replace their left side tires?
And the other driver that's suffering right now is the one right behind him, Dranowski. He got fed out to a 3-wide situation on the restart, and since then he's been watching the positions bleed away. Now he's got no place to try and keep up his speed on the 2 tires that he did take, because the 26 is in front of him.
He's blocked in right now, and a yellow behind these leaders is going to slow things down again. It is Ryan Zima who is turned around, and I guess that's turn number 2 of the racetrack behind all these leaders. In fact, no, turn 3. Talk about how big these corners are. Tough to tell at a quick glance sometimes. Zima around from the tail end of the lead lap.
Oh, he got big help. McClenny already involved in another wreck earlier on this evening. In fact, a couple of them, I believe. And this time really hooked him. Now, this one I think is a little bit more on Cabe McClenny. I think he kind of started it when he caught the outside wall. We'll see in a second. And he's going to have to come in for a pit stop. But man, Zima just smashes into the barrier, and there's no safer barriers on this track. This is just your typical short track where it is concrete.
Makes it unique. Here's the onboard perspective, and yeah, you can see Zima kind of the innocent bystander, as it was that initial battle between the other 2 cars that he, I think, just found himself in the middle of. Yeah,
he hit the wall. It bounced him back into Zima on the inside, and And yeah, Zima really wasn't doing anything, just didn't expect the car to suddenly hook the right side of him and send him flying up to the outside. McClenny going to try and take a few more repairs, but Zima at this stage is also behind him. Actually, he's going to get the spot back. He's going to be able to stay out. Oh, man, he backed into that one hard.
It's a big hit, and again, nothing that Zima did wrong necessarily, more so just wrong place at the wrong time, and that second look kind of showed you the story there. There was an ongoing battle with the 10 and the 8. The 10 got squeezed into the wall, got loose, 28 car gets hooked, and again, he gets the worst of it by a wide margin, while the two drivers who were initially battling drive off into 3 unaffected. One car pulls off a pit road ahead of the leaders. That's Blake Thordberg, who is 2 laps down. But rejoining the racetrack after getting some service. We can say, though, that we have had our first retiree of the night. Brian Narducci is no longer on the racetrack, so I think his night has officially ended, and that car is indeed officially retired from this race. So the first one goes on the flatbed and is headed home, although I guess if you're here at Five Flags, you're watching the rest of the race from the infield. You can't get out of it mid-race. So he'll enjoy the rest of it, but his night does come to a close. First driver of the 30 who started this race that will not go the distance.
Already going back double file with the lights out now. So Maines and Kuhn, the 2 up at the top, but watch out for Parker Retzlaff. He's still back there sitting in 3rd. Kind of been the main protagonist tonight, I'd say, for the top spot, the ones that have been sharing it back and forth. So I've been just keeping a close watch on them, but the 5 behind them also could be a real threat.
Green flag back in the air. Retzlaff chomping at the bits to go for second to the inside of Kuhn. Not that long ago, these two were fighting for the race lead. It's for second. Retzlaff a nose in front as the yellow comes out for a Justin Crow spin.
And I think this might be another solo. No, I think he got some help, it looks like. So that sends him around. This was down into turn 1, so very quickly being sent back in. Here's the replay on this one, just your simple nudge to the back of the car, and unfortunately they had already gotten well up to speed, so another driver that finds a big thwack into the outside.
Seemed like there were a lot of really aggressive checkups up top, because it was the 20 car that chased Pierce behind Crow, and he very clearly checked up twice. I mean, you could see the front nose of that 20 car dip down as he got onto the brakes, as if he's trying to, yield to the 25. I don't know if the 25 was having an issue or simply just checking up in response to what he saw up the road. But, I mean, eventually he braked, and eventually had to roll the corner and made some contact. So he tried to not just go through the 25, but in the end, Crow ends up into the outside wall. And another incident right in the midfield. P16 goes to show the midfield, not a place you want to be. In last year's Winter Derby, we saw some of the top cars lose out on an opportunity to win the race based on when they decided to pit. It cycled them through to the midfield, and they were involved in incidents just like that one. So I think your race leaders pretty happy that they all pitted together, that none of them have been singled out by, getting off cycle with one another and getting stuck in the midfield, because that has been where all the trouble's been.
I was trying to figure out who that yellow car that nearly got involved in the incident, but looks like maybe he narrowly avoided it. Looks like that was McClenny. So, and he did unfortunately get some help or some hurt on that. It looks like he had to come into the pits to take some repairs, but he is still on the lead lap. But he's been involved in quite a bit here today. In terms of talking about the aggressive restarts, I was looking down, and right about where you pointed out, 16th and below, there's a bit of variance on who is pitted when last. So I wonder if that's part of it, that maybe drivers just have different levels of grip back there, and it's a combination of the aggression, and everybody's on so many different abilities of grip down into that corner that we're getting some miscommunication into who's doing what.
I think that's likely, right? I mean, the more variance you have in strategy, in speed, mentality, more likely that you're going to have some of the incidents just like those, and that could be a reason why the midfield is that melting pot of madness, as I like to say, and I think that is probably the likely culprit on why that has and probably will continue to be a focus point over the course of this race. Is can these drivers continue to try to stretch this one out? We've seen a couple of long runs. We've seen 20, 30 lap runs, only a handful of them, but most of them have been short and sweet to the point, and a couple of the yellows in a row have almost aided Retzlaff, right? He hadn't cleared Kuhn, but the yellow came out when he had a nose in front. Because of that, he's on the front row. Green flag is in the air. He can't get the lead, but he'll be comfortably in second with his eyes set on the 3.
Oh, Dranowski, the bottom of a 3-wide situation. Dallas Pataska in the 11 kind of gets the bad end of that stick, but great move by the 9 of Dranowski to try and kind of reverse things on what he had before. And that's going to get him a couple of spots if he can just get by the 26 of Langford, who still has not pitted.
Still yet to pit, but continues to ride the now 124 lap old tires in a top 10 spot. Bit of a touch there with the 9 car of Mitchell Dranowski. The 13, a Rocky Boyd, to get to go under the 26. So Langford doing his best to make those old tires work. But again, pinned on the top side, I think is going to be a long-term loss for the 26 as another yellow comes from behind the race leaders. I see Jonathan Adkins slow in the 21 car. It is rolling off, so whatever the incident was, not a major one, but enough for the yellow flag to come out.
I was worried for a second. I saw a 2 and a 1 in a black car.
Right? Flashback.
So Jonathan Adkins gets a little bit of that curse as well, it seems, as he goes to the back of the lead lap cars now into 26th. Somebody needs to also tell Steele that they're virtual tires. You don't have to pay for them. I know this is short track racing, and maybe that's a concern sometimes. Big help from the 8, unfortunately, on the inside, just kind of hip checking the 21 there through 3 and 4. Didn't look like some of our other incidents which were more nose to tail. This one just a straight door to door.
Yeah, and I think the 8 on the inside, to Collins's credit, he didn't really go any higher up the hill than the 2 car did in front of him. I think he was just kind of following the line of the cars down low up the road, and maybe it was the 21 who didn't necessarily pinch, but was a tad lower than the 8 was anticipating, and therefore when he drove it in to follow the 2, it just happened to drive him right into the door of the 21 car. And as that happened, by the way, Blake Thornburg was able to drive on by and watch it. But yeah, not the 1-2 this time. It was the 21, and the bad luck strikes for Jonathan Adkins, who gets assisted around. Haven't talked a ton about him tonight, but admittedly, the cars that we haven't touched on gets fewer and fewer as these incidents continue. And listen, 300 laps, it's not a short race, Joe, but it's not a long race, right? I mean, even in oval racing terms, plenty of longer ones, right? We see the Coke 600. We did a full-length NASCAR iRacing Series race at Phoenix not all that long ago. So it's not short, but it ain't that long. But I think some of the principles of those longer races are still true. We've kind of referenced the attrition a couple of times tonight, and maybe us not talking about you a ton in the opening 150 isn't always the worst thing, right? You get some of these drivers. How about Garrett Lowe? Haven't talked a ton about him. Wesley Parker, we've said their names, but haven't talked a ton about them. Well, they've gone 19th and 20th to 4th and 5th. Again, sometimes flying under the radar, not being the guy who's making noise isn't the worst of decisions.
Staying out of trouble really is a skill. It's more than just accident avoidance. It's kind of reading the situation. You sort of have your spidey sense, if you will, where you can kind of tell the drivers that you're riding around have gotten a little antsy. You watch the moves they're making, you read the body language of the car, and you maybe put yourself out of harm's way. By the way, Blake just got his lap back from that accident. They do have the lucky dog here tonight, so he's back on the lead lap because of that.
Back on the lead lap and back in the fight. Meanwhile, we are back underway. Green flag in the air with 130 laps down and 170 to go, and it is a mess on the front straightaway. Stack them up as Trey goes involved. Thornburg there again. Davala sideways as Smith. I think the only other car was maybe Cabe McClenny, so that is a half a dozen mess on the front stretch right off of the restart.
It's a really strange one, but I think it has to do with the pit wall. And I think it was Pacioli initially. Yeah, okay, so it looks like Timmy maybe got pushed around from what I can see on my cameras. And unfortunately, when he got pushed around, well, the pit wall was already there, and it was almost kind of a street circuit effect. Watch this. I mean, no place for the car to go. Everybody else having to check up. And, well, like you said, it sort of the dominoes fell, and it was hard to avoid all the craziness.
I mean, I've seen cars drive into the pit wall just trying to cut the corner too tight. Now, obviously, 17 assisted there off of the restart, but you're right. He hits the wall, and it's really the cars avoiding him, who, again, there's no room, so you got to make an aggressive dive up top, and it's more cars wrecked avoiding the accident than the accident actually was. The 17, Pacioli's the guy who got turned. He drives away.
I'm starting to wonder if Langford in that 26 is employing the strategy that we're getting a lot of yellows. You know, they're not constant, but they're enough that I'm not losing enough. That if he waits and he pits late, that the other drivers will have worn out their tires up at the front enough that even though he's lost the track position, yes, he everybody has plenty of tires, but if it goes green towards the end and he picks the time right and finds a yellow, he could put himself back to the front just by getting a nice long green flag run and having fresher tires than everybody else. Now, that's a theory, and it's a big gamble on his part. I mean, it gave him track position briefly, and he did start this race in 18th. So, I don't know. I'm spitballing a little bit because I'm a bit confused by his strategy, but that's the best I can think of. And, I mean, it could work with how the race is going.
Referenced earlier that Brian Narducci was the first car to drop out of this race, and I see the questions in our live chat. Appreciate everybody tuning in with us on RaceSpotTV. Brian Narducci was last involved in an incident lap 76, which caused some heavy damage to the 29 car, probably to the point where that car would have not been competitive anymore. That is when Narducci took his car behind the wall. He is still the only driver to retire from this race after starting 29th. He comes home in 30th, the only driver with the DNF on the board so far. Lights out on top of the pace car is just squeaking out of pit road was Blake Thornburg there. He's going to try to catch the rear of the field. So does Nathan Coaster and a couple of other cars as Cade McClellan is still on pit road. Probably going to miss the restart. But everybody else lined up side by side. Maines has been able to hold on to the lead on the two-tire pit call since we saw all of the race leaders come down pit road for the first time about 38 laps ago. Retzlaff wants to change it, and what a curveball by the 3, and it is going to stack them all up. They have been going early Joe on every restart tonight, and Garrett saw that Parker was trying to time it, just didn't jump it, and everybody else did behind, and that was ugly.
Yeah, I mean, the top side especially, I saw Dranowski in particular go pretty quickly, and he had to check up. That's what caused a lot of it. Langford, he finally got caught up in it, and pretty big. He had a huge hit. I saw a few others trying to see who all was involved in that one, because I think the 6 got turned as well. That's Tracy Petter, was facing the wrong way at one point on that one, which is never a good thing. But yeah, you've got to make sure and watch, and don't just pay attention to what the cars in front of you are doing, but make sure that you're not trying to jump that start. Yeah, there you go. And Steele, unfortunately, was not the man of steel right there. He had a big hit into the right front.
Big hit. And again, to Garrett's defense, didn't do anything wrong.
Oh, no.
He did not go late. He just didn't go way early, right? I mean, the pace car leaves, even on the initial start of the race. We saw Ryan Kuhn go right away. Didn't even wait for the drop of the green flag. So there is that big variance. You can't really look at those white lines in 3 and 4 as an exact match, because, again, they're not really going by that restart zone, but everybody's anticipating that pace car has the apron, we're going, right there. That's when they've been throttling up the whole time. And then once the first car accelerates, right, second car, third car, fourth, it's like a traffic jam on the freeway. Once one car then has to slam on the brakes, it's going to get worse on row 2 and 3 and 4, and eventually it just turns into a big old mess like that. And I wonder now, we haven't seen a ton of gamesmanship up front. We've seen drivers get better restarts, not as good restarts, right? The leader's been pretty, I'd say, untouchable thus far, at least off of the drop of the green. But now I wonder if we're going to see a little bit more of those gamesmanship, right? Bringing them way up to the wall or bringing them slow, going way early. We didn't see a ton of that. I wonder if this changes things now.
Oh, it certainly does. You're going to try and keep them guessing. And yeah, I'm with you. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what you're supposed to be doing, is just try and keep from anybody trying to game that start. And obviously it caused a few people some headache, But I mean, that's on everybody else to not try and do that and get yourself into trouble, because obviously, as we see, if you try to read minds a little bit too much in this game, you can find yourself really causing yourself some serious problems. You mentioned earlier about the drivers that were getting out in front of the pace car. Because of all these yellows, we actually only have 2 cars that are a lap down or more, and that's Bailey Dutton and Tyler Davala. There is still 27 cars on the lead lap in this race.
It's a pretty big number for the amount of incidents that we've seen and the amount of laps that have been completed, and we're about halfway through in Pensacola. Green flag is back in the air again. Maines kind of pulled up in front to make sure the 4 car knew that he was clear of him. A couple of cars deep into turn number 1. They'll be side by side in the midfield as your top 2 have single filed out.
Wesley Parker might be able to get one over on Kuhn here if he can just finish it. No, looks like the one's going to out-drag him there along the front stretch and slot back down single file. That red number 9, though, has been in all the action, and I think he did the smart thing. He just got single file as well. It seems like every time I look at Dranowski, he is involved in some kind of craziness.
He really is. No matter where we look, it's always got something to do with Mitchell Dranowski in the number 9 car. He's always in on the fun. Right now, it's single file for the number 7 spot. In fact, I think for a brief moment in time, maybe single file throughout the entirety of the running order. But up front, single file does not mean spread out. You see the midfield. They do have some side-by-side action. Couple of lap cars yielding to the outside in those high teens. But I think more separation on this start that we've seen. And now a battle for the race lead. Retzlaff to the inside and contact with Maines. The 3 car saves it on the outside. Great driving by Garrett, but the race lead is long gone after Parker Retzlaff moved him out of the way.
Wow, and that was good news, bad news for Maines. He didn't hit the wall with that save, but he also didn't bring out a yellow because of that save. So now he's got a lot of hard work to do here to try and play catch-up on these drivers, and he probably toasted the tires quite a bit trying to save that thing, locking down the brakes as it rode up the hill. Let's take another look at it.
It was a quick dive, quick trigger dive to the inside, which we've seen out of Retzlaff. The 3 certainly didn't give more room than necessary to the 4, but he belt left exactly a car length. And the problem is, when there's exactly a car length, it means you're probably going to touch. And that contact came on a very vulnerable part of the race car for the 3. And I feel like we really couldn't celebrate the fantastic save that we saw out of the 3 car there, because we were more so concerned about, well, that's a big loss for Garrett, who drops outside of the top 10. But it is worth noting, it's a hell of a save for the driver of the 3 car, and he makes a pass there on Jake Fisher to defend P11 as we are 150 down and 150 to go, halfway home in the iRacing Winter Derby this time.
Just have to do that all over again, I suppose. But the 3 is already passed 1 car, and he might get another in front of him, as a few drivers doing their darn best to try and bring out the yellow again.
You talked about those sloped front ends. We referenced it earlier in the race, that when you get underneath somebody's bumper like that, it's going to jack the back end up off of the ground, and then when the car comes back down, those wheels are going to chatter, they're going to spin, and it's hard to save it. And that's what happened to Rocky Boyd there. Credit to Lowe and Dranowski. Didn't run him over. Well, let me be clear. They ran him over the first time, but then didn't run through him while he was trying to save it. He had the opportunity to save the race car. He did. He'll stay P4. It is going to cost that battle from 4th on the back, though, a ton of time to those top 3 who have checked way out.
Tell you what, behind them, I've been watching Keteman. You could see in that 2 wide situation, he's been struggling since then, bouncing off the walls, and now he's bouncing into the 27 who gets turned, and everybody avoids him miraculously, including the 21.
So the quick yellow is out as the 27 of Nathan Lyons has gone around, as you mentioned. He was running in 8th position at the time, and this one, I don't know if this is a non-committal, because it wasn't a hit to the side and it wasn't a hit flat on the bumper. It was just kind of right through the quarter panel, right? Kind of tough to tell where was that 18 machine behind Lyons. Keteman trying to go, trying to get to the inside, trying to go through the bumper. Here's the first touch, right? Certainly ran through him once, but then they at least let him save it. That's all you can ask for. At least give him a chance. He saves it. The 13 car hangs on. So that was the first of the incidents, and then we'll get a second look to the 27 car who gets turned in this one. It was Nathan Lyons turned around in turn 1 on lap 154.
Yeah, and that goes back to Keteman, who I was just talking about in the moment. Mark was kind of all over the place and maybe saw a bit of an opening. I don't think it was an intentional move. Watch this. It's down to the inside, and yes, the 27 kind of shuts the door, but I think he maybe just needed to give a little bit more space, and unfortunately the 22 of Brinson is the one that ran into him after everybody else had managed to go to either side.
I think it just comes down to, again, maybe both drivers not necessarily committing one way or the other, right? There was a half a lane there, all right? If there's a half a lane, you're going to force the issue. If you are, you got to put it down on the apron or drive into the door, right? But you got to make the spot, or you tuck in line. And it seemed like neither of them were really 110% on what they wanted to do. Here's the onboard perspective from behind. Spinner up the road, and it's going to be a little bit of bonus damage there as a couple of drivers tried to avoid that accident and pick up some additional damage. So the good news is, again, we are past halfway home in this race. One would think, as you see all of those cars who come trickling off of pit road, drivers who have been involved in incidents earlier tonight have been picking up damage, that as more cars get damaged, Joe, and drop off the pace, you would think second half of the race likely to have less yellows than the first. Now, I don't have the crystal ball. I'm not going to lock it in. I'm not going to say final answer, but trend-wise, most of these races do see things knock out some green flag laps towards the midway point, and then maybe you get some towards the end. We'll see if that's the case here tonight, but I think that's a positive outlook.
If we get angry drivers for all the yellows in the second half, I'm turning them to you. I'm just saying right now.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, I hope so. And usually it does clean up because we have some retirements. But like I said, we've only had a single retirement so far. Still 29 cars out there. With short track racing, unfortunately, the speeds aren't usually very high. This is a very fast track, but they don't seem to be going fast enough that it's taking cars out of it. And with this special event, we got a lot of determined drivers that don't want to give up on this one.
Yeah, it's the top split open race of the weekend, so drivers have been working on these setups. They got a lot invested. They want to get a good finish and a good showing in this one. The green flag's back in the air. It's another good start for Etzlaff. No surprise there, but the challenge comes from Parker. Almost got to the inside of Kuhn for second. He can't do it. He'll tuck in line third. That 13 of Boyd is fourth, under fire. Here comes the three-car spinner for Drunowski into the outside wall, and Fisher gets turned as well.
His luck finally ran out. The 9, I think, got a little bit of help once again from a car down below. You were talking about it earlier about needing to leave a little bit of space out there. And honestly, that's especially true in sim racing. In the real world, you can kind of lean on each other a little bit. In sim racing, sometimes the nature of the internet just means you don't have that extra wiggle room, and sometimes these things can happen. So when Drunowski got nudged up a little bit, and I don't think he was necessarily at fault. I'll have to take another close look to see what I feel about that. Here we go. I don't think he pinched him down too much, at least, but he was racing him close. So that seems like more of a racing incident to me.
And again, off the restart, there's going to be less space. The opportunities and time to kind of make decisions, that window tightens up quite a bit. And you have to make quick decisions, tuck in line, go for the move. And it is just kind of the nature of the beast. You can see again, as they come off, it's just that it's such a slight touch that I don't know if you can really say any driver did one thing wrong or the other. And it's just race and deal. I mean, you're going to have that off of the restarts. There's been certainly incidents that could have more easily been avoided tonight. I find it difficult to say, you did this wrong there in that situation. Just a lot of cars fighting for a little bit of real estate. And that is a point, Joe, that can go against my theory of, well, late in the race, you should see less yellows, right? Because it was something we discussed earlier, right? Drivers keep seeing wrecks. The obvious answer is back it down a bit, but then the wrecks are frustrating. You want track position because you don't have the green flag laps, yada, yada. Late in this race now, it's going to be very similar, right? Once we get to 100 to go, 75 and 50, it's going to be easy for us to say, getting down to the end, these drivers want to get some green flag laps, and the problem is they're going to get more and more desperate because each yellow flag is going to take 3 to 5 laps of green flag racing away. So when we get later, I'd say anywhere inside of the final 100, these drivers are going to see those yellow flags as taking opportunities away from them, which means they're going to drive more aggressive off of the restarts to try to maximize their opportunities, which will then in turn cause more yellows. So we'll see if that's what the final 100 looks like, but that is going to be a factor as we get into the closing laps eventually.
Yeah, and they do have the 3 green-white checkers as well to help save them there. So that could play a part in it, since they know they kind of have that to try and get another go at the finish on this thing. So yeah, I definitely expect, at least in the last 20 laps or so, it's probably going to be a lot of yellows. I'd love to be proven wrong, but that's what I'm anticipating. Now, I had mentioned earlier we're not losing a lot of cars because of the low speeds. That could still happen. And I think if we do start seeing a lot more retirees in this race, then we could see it clean up before we get to the final 20 laps or so.
We'll see if that is indeed how this one shakes out, as we've got another restart on our hands. The pace car going to be off and away as we look for the green flag with 134 laps to go into Pensacola. Good jump for Parker Retzlaff. He's led the last 25 laps of this race, and he defends the top spot. Kuhn leaves the bottom open. Not enough run for Parker to get to the inside, so the 1 car clear for second. And now here comes Rocky Boyd. Can the 13 car finish the pass topside? He does, and he'll take away third.
Look at Garrett Maines. He's already working on 5th. He's clearly been working hard in what little green flag laps we have had. Just passes Keeneman. Once again, bounces off the wall. Down to the apron. He's going to try and save it. Great job, because that could have been a wreck right there.
That was a sloppy half a lap there for Mark Kiedemann, but it could have been a lot worse after he knocked it off of the wall. Credit goes to Jonathan Adkins as well for checking up a little bit to allow him to save that race car, but it does break up the pack the ever so slightest. Midfield, not the case. Look at this battle and a big wiggle there for the 10 car. 3 wide now to the inside as it's Petter making the aggressive move.
Oh, and the 10 once again getting real wiggly down at the bottom. He's going to pull out of the way and let it go. I wonder if he's got some damage. Oh, he's got a black flag, actually. That must be the incident limit.
McClenny with a big bobble and then very quickly got out of the way. And Cade McClenny to pit road, done just like that. Meanwhile, back up front, you can see the field tries to spread itself out, and Retzlaff and Kuhn pulling away in first and second. Behind them, some side-by-side racing. It's the 16 of Jake Fisher on the outside and the 6 of Tracy Petter on the bottom. It's a battle for 13th spot. It'll go to the inside as the 6 car wins out.
Fisher going to get himself a nice little slot to try and get into there. That'll put him into 14th, just ahead of Pacioli, who is still running despite the barrel roll early on, as we take a look at the leaders once again. And again, the pace of these two looking very evident. We've been green for, what, just a couple laps, and they're already gapping Rocky.
And they're doing a good job of putting some time. And again, the story of these two drivers, pretty tied together, right? Kuhn led the first pretty much 93 laps of this race consecutively. Retzlaff has led 33 since then, so these two have been factors all night long and want to be able to fight out for the race amongst themselves. Meanwhile, back in traffic a little bit. Big issues for the two. Joel Smith, who we haven't talked a ton about. This car's been dropping pretty significantly the last few laps, is up the road from him. A big catch for the 8 car. So there's cars just all over the place, getting loose, catching it. I think that damage that has slowly been built up after incident, starting to catch up. And maybe aside from those two up front, nobody else real comfortable with the race cars. They ain't driving good right now.
Yeah, so it looks like Kuhn going to give the lead away once again to, or Retzlaff giving the lead away to Kuhn. Also, Nathan Lyons had a bizarre incident. You may have seen him flash across the screen. I think he was trying to pit in or something, or maybe he got some help, and ran into the tractor tire at pit entry. And, well, I mean, if you run into that thing, it's not good.
Yeah, not ideal, and it's a tricky pit road entry here, especially if you're doing it at speed, which we almost never see with that tire there. And, yeah, there's the look out sideways, and that's a super late model skewer down there in turn 4.
So it looks like maybe the car to the outside did give him a little bit of a bump, so had some help. That is really unfortunate. I was going to mention something about that earlier when we saw the car hit the inside wall, that you do have to be careful on that turn 3, because that can happen And I've seen it a number of times where drivers get a little bit loose and just end their night very suddenly.
And that is a no margin for error if you find yourself in trouble down on the inside off of turn number 4. At that point, almost better to just bail out to pit road than to try to save that race car. The tire helps you from not using that pit road wall as a ramp to try to recreate the flip from earlier tonight, but it does not help with the fact that your car's stuck in there. And who do you want to be? Do you want to be Pacioli, who barrel rolls and keeps going, or the guy that's skewered on the pit road, tire? Maybe neither of those are a good option, but one of the cars still in the race, so who's to say? As we continue to look again in the midfield, there's going to be a battle. No matter where you look, when you look, something's going to be happening, and looks like that side-by-side right there between the 25 of Justin Crowe, the 11 car of Dallas Pataska, lapped machine, no longer on the lead lap, trying to fight back. So it's really just the lead lap cars trying to work around that black 11. He's holding the preferred lane on the bottom, though, so he's forcing them to do it the tricky way and go to the outside, and there's a spinner in front of him. Just talked about Pacioli, and he's around now in turn 1.
Another case of a car just trying to be aggressive down into 1. This time, it was Ryan Zima who was definitely trying to make a move this time, I'm pretty certain. Here on the replay, early turn in, and yeah, the door was left open, but that was from a bit far back, honestly, there from Ryan.
I mean, I think the 17 car was already on the brakes, and the 28 was still a car length and a half back. And again, the bottom's there, but the bottom's there because you arc the corner entry and kind of overshot a little bit, cleaned him out. And now, what will likely be the final trip down pit road for the race leaders tonight. They all waited till about the 1/3 marker to come down and pit the first time, and now a majority of them are in with 115 laps to go. Some took 4, some took 2 the last time we were down pit road. Overwhelming decision is going to be right sides only for most of your race leaders.
And this is what I like to see. Look at the gamblers that we've got left over. Garrett Lowe, Ryan Zima, Joel Smith, Matt Brinson, Nathan Koester all stayed out. So, Smith looks like he's going to abandon that, and he just pits right now. And Trago has similar regrets as he is going to come in. But we got about 5 drivers that are willing to try and stay out a little bit longer to see what they can get out of the track position here tonight.
And of course, you mentioned the split strategy with Lowe, Zima, Brinson, and Koester staying out. Very clearly puts them in the minority decision on, well, it's kind of them versus everybody else. Now, Zima, just involved in the incident. Brinson, Smith, have fought hard for their own effect tonight, but have not been in the same position that Garrett Lowe has been in, at least a little bit further up through the field. Now, the 5 car, before the yellow flag comes out, is running back in 9th, right? It's not like a top 5 car staying out and going way off strategy. So I'm not surprised that it's these cars who have kind of not had the ability to just drive up there so far tonight to make this decision, right? Because you might as well mix it up. You want to finish well in this race. I don't think many drivers came here to run 29th and bring home a clean race car in a special event, right? I mean, most of them, I-rating aside, safety rating aside, all of those things want to finish good. And Garrett Lowe, very clearly somebody who has the talent and the ability to maybe turn this into something.
And here's the thing. I went and checked, and it said last pit stop was about 30 laps ago or so for Garrett Lowe. He took 2 tires when he did that. That was a couple cautions ago. Others behind him I haven't been able to check yet, because Zima and Koester also have pitted 25 and 24 laps ago. So I'll see if I can find out whether or not they took tires. But Garrett Lowe, actually, I think is not going to be too disadvantaged as we go back racing.
His 2-lap tires only 30 laps older than the cars behind. Look out, man. Thought that 13 of Boyd was going to force it to the inside of Koester. He doesn't. Instead, he gets on the bumper and wants to kind of shove draft the 15 car. They are side by side and in formation from second on back. Now he'll go to the inside. 3 wide for second. Do they fit into turn number 1? Contact as the 15 and the 28 get pushed out of the way. There's still 3 wide. They will wreck behind as those leaders manage to hang on. Well, if I had $1 to bet, I'd bet the yellow would have came from that, but somehow those drivers in the top 10 put on a show, and the yellow came from well behind those top cars as something else happened on the racetrack.
Yeah, I think that was C. Tucker. And if it is, this is honestly another almost premature yellow. He wasn't even completely turned sideways. He was sliding, and he got into a little bit of a problem with Dranowski there, but he saved it before it completely went around. If anything, that yellow almost kept us from having another one, because I think, like, I'm with you. I thought for sure this is going to cause a yellow up in front. 3 wide, 2 deep, and yet somehow they kept it from wrecking.
I think I'm with you in terms of Barney probably didn't need to throw the yellow here. That's 45 degrees sideways. I mean, that's sideways. Don't get me wrong, but maybe not necessarily warranting of a yellow. But again, it's worth noting, if you're not familiar, is caution flags handed out automatically by the iRacing service. There is no kind of judgment call from a live official in that. So we've seen consistently, albeit, a couple of those seemingly quick trigger yellows over the course of this race. But I think if that yellow doesn't get thrown there, I think we're probably right. I think we're talking about a 5-car pileup at about a half a lap instead.
So another little look at this one from the battle up front.
That's 4 right there for a minute.
4 wide. Oh, my goodness. And the 1 was even starting to get loose there, hitting the 18 just as the yellow started to come out. And thankfully, everybody was able to check up and cool the heart rate down for a moment and maybe reassess the situation. I'm pretty sure some of those in there are probably also going, maybe let's not do that again.
And funny enough, with how aggressive they were on that restart, I glanced to the scoring tower expecting to see, 40 to go, 50 to go, right? Like, man, they're racing hard. We got to be getting down to it. You still got about 105 laps to go next time by the start-finish line. So we've got a ways to go as we continue to race into the afternoon here at iRacing's virtual Five Flag Speedway in Pensacola. Your lap-led leaders to this point, pole sitter Ryan Kuhn has led 103 laps. That's more than anybody else. Garrett Maines has led 38. Parker Retzlaff has led 34. Steele Lankford 10. And Garrett Lowe 9. So that is 5 different race leaders over the course of this race. And with Garrett Lowe leading another one, he will tie and soon pass Lankford for the 4th most laps led on the afternoon. Of course, only one that matters at the end of the day is lap number 300 or something beyond that with those green-white checkers in our back pocket. 23 cars still on the lead lap in this race. I'd say the number is probably closer to 20 of those cars that are actually competitive and not too damaged. Pace car off and in. Lowe slows them down, and it's going to be a great jump for the 3 car. Do we go 3 wide again? What a block by Rocky Boyd.
He's going to hold on the outside. He's got to watch out for Retzlaff down there on the bottom. Look at him jump off the corner, though. He gained a lot up alongside the 5, and now we're wrecking behind him just as he got his nose ahead. Will they count him as the leader?
Big time for the yellow there, as I think Boyd will be credited with the lead, and the spin is Tracy Petter in the 6 car, who was around in turn number 3 and was assisted, I believe. We'll wait for the replay to confirm that, but looked like the 6 had some help on an initial look. And let's watch the red car behind. 6 goes low. I think the 16 either was also going low but wasn't anticipating the 6 to be there. I think he kind of thought I had to get under the 16, and when the 16 went low, he was just a little bit late on the brakes and tagged him there. That's what causes the yellow. But to your point, Joe, time to the yellow is big here because Rocky Boyd had not yet cleared Garrett Lowe but was in front at the moment of yellow, and therefore is going to be scored as your race leader for the first time tonight.
Wow. Sometimes the luck is just on your side. Also, if you notice the 18 car on that replay, Keteman was full Florida drift, just saved it as I think he got a little bit of touch from Petter as well. Just kind of what we saw earlier where a car got bumped from behind and then bumped the car in front. That almost sent him around, but he somehow kept it from completely spinning, and that worked out great for him because he's actually still in 9th place, just above a lot of the melee that we've been watching earlier.
Here's the second look at what happened there with the touch. 6 goes under the 18. There's the touch from behind, and then there was that big drift through the corner. A couple of cars riding the fence for good measure. Turn 3 looked like a night of destruction out at the racetrack there, but they're able to continue through And again, all things considered, could have been worse. Relatively minor damage for most of the cars involved. And we are now inside of 100 laps to go in this iRacing Winter Derby. Again, plenty of splits and different session times over the course of the weekend, both on the open side and on the fixed side. But at least for our feature split of the week, very clearly on pace to go longer than last year's race, which was about an hour and 50 minutes. We're currently at an hour and 28 since the green flag came out.
Take another look at the replay on the start here. So there he was with his nose ahead through the corner, so you could see there as they went around, he had just about got maybe a foot in front of him, but that's all you need. Once that yellow comes out, it locks them into position.
So now what does Rocky Boy do as the control car for the first time in this race? And there's a lot of experience around him. Low on the older tires. Retzlaff on even keel behind. He goes early, and Garrett Lowe caught sleeping. Retzlaff through to second. Here comes Maines on the bottom of the 5 car as he tries to take away third.
And he's going to do so successfully. The 5 finding just enough space to cut off Langford on that one. Again, the moves are indeed getting very aggressive. Even at the front, they are barely clear. As soon as they are given an inch, they are sliding in.
The give is no more, and it is all take in the final 100 laps of this Winter Derby, and it includes for the battle for the lead. 3 wide back and forth, side by side for the top spot, and Parker Retzlaff back to the top spot at lap 205.
Seen him do that a couple times now, so in fact, we've seen him do the reverse as well, give that lead away a few times, not fighting, and behind them, Steele now in a battle with Kuhn. Now, Kuhn made a really smart decision as that pass for the lead was happening. He went 3 wide, and he could have tried to keep in there as we got a car in the back. And before I can make my point, Justin Crowe is going to bring out another yellow, and Casey Tucker is on the radio, incensed about something.
There was contact between Fisher and Crowe, but Tucker obviously very clearly not happy about something that happened, and he was behind that. I think Tucker may have gotten hit late after the yellow by the 24, and it's just kind of unrelated to the initial contact. But where it all started was certainly Crowe and Fisher behind. We take a look. Again, that's kind of one of those, there's a half lane there. Is it a lane? Is it not? Someone's got to pick and choose. If not, you're going right into the quarter panel. We've seen at least 5 of those incidents, I think, tonight.
We have to remember that there are incident limits, too. For those not familiar, iRacing doles out incident points, as they call them. If you make car contact with another car, that's 4 of them. If you go through the grass, that's 1 point. If you spin or hit the wall, that's 2 points. After 25 points, you're given a drive-through penalty. I mentioned it earlier tonight with one of the drivers. At 32, you're actually disqualified from the race, and it's immediate. There's no protest or anything. You're just tossed out. Some of these drivers are getting mighty close, and I wonder if maybe Casey Tucker is getting a little bit nervy about that, because he's once again, he is getting very vocal on the radio, and I see Nathan Lyons has been one of those that's also been given a black flag, but I think he's had such significant damage, he's been taking repairs for quite some time now.
Yeah, Tucker frustrated, I think more so just with his situation than any single person in particular. Good that you mentioned the incident point limit. Casey's, I think, complaint right now is he's the first car lap down in 24th. He says that he's been trying to get the lucky dog for quite some time. The problem is he says he has too many incidents to race aggressively. There were some other colorful descriptors in between that, but that's the gist of the point for Tucker. And that goes to the point where he has those incident points. He wants to be aggressive to get the lucky dog to get back on the lead lap, but he doesn't want to put himself in a position because he has enough incident points that if he gets involved in likely 1 or 2 more accidents, his night is done. So he's frustrated that that's the situation that he's in. And eventually, as we take a look, this probably added to his incident count right there.
Yeah.
And that makes it more frustrating, given that he was probably already annoyed.
Exactly, and I mean, that's the worst case scenario for that, because that's 4 incident points. Like I said,
and for nothing, too.
Yeah, and when you're talking about 25, that's almost a fifth of them right there. that are taken away in a 300-lap race, still with 90 laps to go. So, yeah, that's why we're hearing him be so lively and upset, because you almost kind of have to save them for the end for stuff like this, because stuff like that can take you out, and it's not even your fault.
Green flag back in the air as Parker Retzlaff, the control car once again. He'll clear Rocky Boyd into turn 1. Top 2 get single file. We're spinning again. It'll be a save in the end for Wesley Parker, but the yellow comes out nonetheless after he was sent for a ride in turn 1.
Yeah, it went completely sideways. This one, I think, makes a little bit more sense on that caution. I think it was Chase Pierce who initially turned him, and then Joel Smith kind of righted his boat and got him back going the right way. I see Trevor Trago now with a black flag. I'm kind of watching my timing screen now to look out for those, considering we're hearing people a little bit more active on the radio. I suspect there's a number of people that are getting very, very close and are going to be suffering from that. Because the thing is, you can't serve those under caution. You got to do that under green. So you're almost guaranteed to go a lap down, even with it just being a drive-through.
And the challenge, is, to your point, the more drivers get in that position, they're just going to be forced to not go for those moves that they wanted to, and that'll be obviously a concern. But that could also attribute to maybe less incidents, is that as drivers get up against that cap, they're not going to be able to go for the dive, even if they feel like they're going to make the move, right? It's not going to be I was going to wreck you, I'm not going to wreck you anymore type situation. That's not what it is. It's just simply they would go for a move that might involve bumper-to-bumper, door-to-door contact, that maybe they can no longer afford to do so, and maybe it's going to take away from some of those hairy moments that we typically expect to see when you get down to the final 100 laps of one of these races. But drivers very vocal at this point. Tucker, by the way, just to close that story, has been able to get back to the lead lap. So the VRS machine is now 24th and last of cars on the lead lap in this race. Matt Brinson is 2 laps down in 25th. Bailey Dutton is 18 laps down in 26th position. Tyler Davala, 25 laps down in 27th. Nathan Lyons is on pit road, 36 laps down in 28th. His night, I think, for all intents and purposes, is done. And Blake Thornburg has joined Brian Narducci in the infield. Both of those cars on the hook and done for the afternoon.
Oh, man, you may have seen there Wesley Parker was trying desperately to get back out in front of the pace car. Just missed it by a little bit and has now gone a lap down. I think he's going to come back into pit lane and get a few more repairs because, well, the damage is done. Like we've seen, it is possible to get your laps back, but it makes life so tough. And especially as more drivers go a lap down, it's going to be that much harder to get the lucky dog.
It will be, and to Wesley's point, he actually heads back down to the box entirely. So he's going to get some service there, and that's how close it was. Very clearly, you see the cone to the left-hand side of him did not beat the pace car off of pit road. So that's why he falls down the lap. So I think he could just kind of double down there, head down for some quick pit service, and try to stay out of trouble to become the lucky dog the next time through. Restart due up this time with 83 laps to go. It's a bad start for Boyd. Can he save it? Yes, he reels it in, but it checks up the whole outside line.
Oh, the self-preservation had to be taken into account, and Ryan Kuhn was one of those. They lost a lot. Oh, he gets sit around anyways, even after that big save. He's going to catch it once again. Rocky Boyd is going to be giving lessons on how to drift the car after this one.
It was such a good save in 1 and 2, again, to the detriment of the entire outside line, but they allowed him to save it. They checked up, they lost the spots, and then he made a very aggressive move to turn number 3, and it was probably the worst corner entry I've seen tonight. I don't know what went wrong, if he was just too hard in and locked up a right front, but he tried to get in behind the 18, and when he got on the brakes, the car just kind of shimmied, and it basically parked it in the middle of the road. Watch this. Right there, it just kind of slides up late, and there's the 28 to the bottom, the 1 to the outside. I mean, nothing those cars could have done. That car just did not get into 3 like Boyd needed it to.
We're getting to the stage of the race where I suspect there's a few drivers who have gotten enough damage that it's affecting the handling of these cars. And on top of that, they might be on relatively worn tires too. So we might see more stuff like that where it's doing things that they just don't expect, especially on the restarts when they're still trying to feel it out under green conditions and don't know what's going to happen. So Rocky did his level best, but unfortunately it's going to sit him back to 13th, and now he's back into the thick of the action, unfortunately, in the mid-pack, which, as we've seen, really puts you in a vulnerable spot. You want to be up front. Although lately we've been seeing quite a bit of wild stuff happening up amongst the top 10 as well.
We have. The chaos is maybe no longer as exclusive to the midfield as it was earlier in this race. A lot of the last couple incidents have come from cars inside of the top 10. So that's something to keep in mind as well. As you know, you get late in this race, every position matters. Drivers may start to get a little bit frustrated maybe with where they find themselves, right? Maybe they feel like, I got a top 5 car, but I'm 10th, right? That's going to be frustrating. I'm going to overdrive the car. But at this point, where you've ended up is kind of where that car is speed-wise, as you see that big bobble and, again, the impressive save initially from that 13 off of the restart.
Yeah, but now he's going to have to do a lot of hard work here as Garrett's trying to get into the head of Parker a little bit, pull up alongside him before we've been given the 2 wide signal. These two have been going at it quite a bit. Steele Langford, hard to get a read on this guy. Started from 18th, didn't quite have the qualifying pace compared to some of the others. Pulled a strategy call to get himself up front. That worked for a little bit, but then he started to drop back on the old tires. Then he got involved in a big wreck. Somehow has gotten himself back up to the front here. So the pace must be somewhat there. The ability to avoid the action must be somewhat there, but I'm not sure if he's going to be able to hold on to it.
We'll see what Langford can do. He's on the inside of row 2. Green flag is in the air. It's a good jump for Retzlaff. Main's an opportunity to challenge to the outside, but the 3 car, I think, going to decide to go behind. Mark Keteman missed the corner. The 18 car drops 4 spots. Langford gets turned. Big pile up in turn 3, and he will end up on his lid.
He could still tow it back to pit lane, and he could continue in this race, but at this point, that is probably his chance at winning done for the 26 car. And interestingly, as all this was happening, we saw big moments up at the front too between Parker Retzlaff and Garrett Maines. We almost had a wreck for them first before all the wildness. In fact, I think it kind of started this wreck because there's a checkup. Yeah, it did. Look at that. Checked up the 26, and that just bumped the car into his rear.
Yeah, Retzlaff got loose on his own. Left side tires on that white line. He gets loose, it slides up in front, checks up Maines, and then as Maines is trying to catch the car, the 26 is forced to lift. He's trying to figure out what lane I've got to get into because he's not able to set up for the corner. He's too busy not hitting the 3, and then he pulls down on the 21. So watch the 4. You're going to get the bobble right there. He checks up Maines, and then the 26 behind is just trying to get out of the way, inadvertently pulls down across the nose of the 21, and that's how he ends up into the outside wall and wrong way up.
Also took out Ryan Kuhn, it looks like. I want to say that's the first time we've seen him truly involved in a big accident with quite a few hits. Not sure what state the car is in, and I'm trying to find him. Oh, he's down in 20th right now. He is still on the lead lap, but this is a driver who started this race from the pole, has certainly looked like he is going to be in contention for the win, but now with 74 laps to go, has to try and climb from 19th.
It is a tall order for Ryan Kuhn, who hasn't been out front the entirety of this race, but has just about led as many laps as everybody else combined. I mean, he was pretty dominant up front, had control of this race for the longest time, and then once we started to see the pit strategy mix things up a little bit, just wasn't able to get back out in front and dominate like we had been anticipating. So a very unceremonious end, I'll say, to what had been such a good night for Ryan Kuhn, and he's going to bring the 1 car again. The top seed in this race, the highest I rating out of anybody in the field, as the number 1 seed at 9,617 for this top split open race this afternoon. The lowest ranked driver, Trevor Trago, at a 4,514. So more than double that I rating from the bottom to the top. Goes to show you kind of that broad range of drivers in this top split is Langford and a couple of the drivers will sneak out of pit road ahead of the pace car. They're rounded down in 1 and 2 to catch up as we get set for another restart. You're going to put lap number 229 behind us. 71 laps to go. Blistering start for the Foro Retzlaff.
He was not taking any chances with it this time. Let's hope he can keep it together off of 2, and it looks like he is a lot more solid. They go single file for the top 4 pretty quickly, but still a lot of side-by-side battling from about 7th on back.
A lot of battling still ongoing. The midfield, again, is where all of these undecided battles will fight themselves out to the very end of this race, and they're in the outside wall down the back. It was the 2 car, a Joel Smith, who got into the fence. They're able to pull down and avoid him. Now, a little bit more contact up the road as it was Justin Crow into the wall just a tad, not as major, and Joel Smith loses about 3-4 spots in that exchange.
Glad to see everybody heads up in this situation. I think maybe they've kind of had enough of all the cautions coming out so quickly, so I think people are just kind of minding themselves, watching ahead, just trying to stay out of these problems that start to develop. Smith, I think, must have taken some serious damage because he's dropping somewhat quickly as we take a look at the 6 now.
You're looking up to that 6. Tracy Petter is one of the highest running cars without a lap led. Both he and Jonathan Adkins in 5th and 3rd respectively have yet to lead laps tonight, but they are very much in the conversation as this battle continues on. Petter in between the 5 and the 9. It's Dranowski behind him, and Tracy Petter going to go on the offensive to the inside of Garrett Lowe in a battle for 4th.
They've also got Dranowski in behind them, just kind of waiting patiently, seeing how this one's going to play out, which hat he should throw into on seeing who's going to get by, and as we expected, bottom line still the place to be. Easily overtakes Lowe.
Easily able to snake his way through, so Petter may be at a race high P4. So for all of the talk of, cars are where they should be and maybe settling this thing down, 3rd and 4th on track, the highest they've been all night. Can Adkins, can Petter make some late noise in this iRacing Winter Derby? Then Ida Dradowski not going to allow the 6 to just run away with it. Adkins has had a little bit more luck as he's pulled away a bit in 3rd, but they've both got a long road to go if they're going to get up to Retzlaff and Baines. Once more, the 4 and the 3 have pulled a good lead from 1st and 2nd.
Certainly look to be a lot quicker than everybody else at this stage in the race. We've had a few more retirements. We've mentioned Narducci, Thronberg's out, and Keteman is also the latest to be done. I think Nathan Lyons is effectively out of this race as he spent more than 24 minutes on pit lane. Worth mentioning, Langford is not gone. Langford is already back out on the track.
Just will not go away. Steele Langford has bounced back many a time tonight, just like we've seen some other drivers. Thornburg in the first half kept bouncing back. His luck eventually ran out. Langford back on track in 24th, but not in a position to get back up and into the top positions, at least at this moment. Maybe a brief moment for these drivers to kind of assess where I am, what can I get out of this one, and as we say that up the road, way up the hill goes Jonathan Adkins. He was in 3rd for the first time tonight, and he got sent after a handful of cars. Petter, Dradowski, they all got underneath him. Boyd moved him out of the way, and he probably fought Joe for 50 laps to get those 4 spots and lost them all in one corner.
Exactly, and you can't let that get to you. You can't let the red mist get down. You got to focus forward. Unfortunately, it looks like he just doesn't really have the grip underneath him right now, because as soon as he lost that spot, here comes the car of Justin Crow overtaking him, and he's going to try and fill the void before Pataski gets in there, and he just slides in.
Able to slide in, find the spot. You look at the battle between Petter now and the 9 of Dradowski. As the 9 is clear, so is the 13 of Boyd. So Mitchell Dranowski has also yet to be out front in this Winter Derby. It's the first time for him. He's a top 3 car this afternoon, but he's 2.4 seconds off of the race leaders. Can he get there in the next 55 laps? Trends would say he'll have a restart to aid him, but that front end of the 9 is beat up, and there it is on cue. Caution in 3 and 4. This time, the unlucky name is the 21 of Jonathan Adkins.
I think Adkins' car is suffering out there because I mentioned he looked like he was bleeding spots. Well, Pataska was trying to make a move to the inside just because the 21 did not seem to have the speed on corner entry. Maybe didn't even expect him to catch up that quickly. Turned the car, and it took about all of 3 and 4 for the car to actually get turned around. But when it did, boy, he had bad hits from Garrett Lowe and Chase Pierce.
Yeah, it was those secondary hits that did him in. We'll take a look at the replay. 11 goes underneath. Very light touch. Car sideways, and that's the big hit down on the bottom of the racetrack. And fortunately, enough room for cars to go both high and low to get around him, but not one of those situations where drivers were able to avoid it. And a big late pit strategy call, as a lot of the leaders are in for a third time. The shortest stint comes to a close. They were not out for that long, no more than about 60 laps or so, but they will come in. Retzlaff first off, 2-tire decision. That'll put him off pit road in 4th as Boyd, Pataska, and McClenny stay out.
Interesting. And McClenny doesn't, well, no, here he comes in. So I was going to say, well, I mean, he's already visited them enough. This is his 14th visit to pit lane in this race. He's had to do a lot of repairs, I think, throughout the course of it. So it was kind of impressive that he had put himself up into 3rd, but I guess maybe he didn't feel confident trying to go to the end. To your point about that being a short stint, like you said, about 60 laps or so, well, 52. So that would kind of break it up evenly for the end here. I think this is honestly not that bad of a call. Put some fresh rubber on. Try to be strong at the end, especially compared to some of the others. And even if we don't get that many green flag laps, especially with so few cars as they probably correctly anticipated would stay out, they should be able to make those spots up.
The number of cars who stay out being so low is going to be very helpful in them to try to hang on and race their way back through the field. It's only going to put Retzlaff in 3rd, right? With 2 more cars trickling down, you're going to have Boyd out there on 64-lap old tires. Dallas Pataska all of a sudden finds himself back up here, just courtesy of staying out. He'd like to lead a lap for the first time tonight. His tires, I should say, 36 laps old, and then the 2 fresh tires for basically everybody else from 3rd on to back. You mentioned it's kind of a free spot, Joe, sometimes that 3rd spot. I think a lot of this is going to come down to how well can Retzlaff get off the restart and get under the 11 right away. Well,
considering he's got a lot fresher tires, I think that's going to help him a ton. And we know that Dallas is a very experienced driver, especially on the oval side. I think that he's not going to fight this one too hard, especially with still 50 laps to go. He's going to be looking for a gap as we go green.
Green flag's back in the air, and there it is. Easy move to 2nd for Retzlaff. 3 wide behind for 3rd as Pataska missed the restart by a ton. He falls to 5th, and here we go into turn 3. Parker Retzlaff, fresh tires, and makes it look easy. Back to the race lead and around Rocky Boyd.
Trnowski, though, fighting with Garrett Maines, and he's going to be able to deny him that one, although the 3 with a beautiful cut back under, and he's going to try and get to the inside successfully, takes her right back.
So a nice swipe back to take that spot as they all chase down the 4th car, and there goes Maines. What a save!
A carbon copy of what we saw earlier. Remember, he did that exact same thing, catching the car. This time, though, he actually lost fewer positions, I'm pretty sure.
Not happy over the radio, but it was an impressive save nonetheless, and avoids another yellow flag, and it allows Retzlaff to try to settle in. There's a dive under the 6. Maines on the offensive just like that. He is not done yet.
Well, if you're, I think, was it Dranowski that made that contact? Because if you're Mitchell, watch out for the 3, because he is coming. He's already passed 1 car. I don't think he's going to play nice when he gets there.
You talk about the red mist, it may be motivation. We'll see if some of it clears, if he's able to get up there. But Garrett Maines is about a half a second back from Dranowski, who's the one who made contact with him. It's the 3 car, and fighting up the road may make that easier, right? Dranowski wants to go. He needs to get around Rocky Boyd, who's on 62-lap older tires than him. Look to the bottom there, doesn't force the issue, and he's doing everything he can to get his Charger under the 13 car.
No room at the end. He was very close. He looks around the outside. Got to be careful because he almost opens it up to Justin Crowe, who is right behind him. Another look to the inside. This time he gets fully down to the bottom of the 13.
Right back down to the inside. Garrett Maines watches on, gives his own commentary as Maines moved the 25 out of the way. He said the same thing happened to me. So what's fair is fair in love and war, and Maines gets around 2 spots, but a yellow comes out before he'll catch the 9 car. There's some smoke down, I think, in turn number 1.
Yeah.
Maybe another one of those quick saves.
It was Crowe. Almost saved it. Car came to a halt, but he didn't hit the wall. He's had a rough one these last 2 laps. He got turned there by the 3, and then Chase Pierce came along and did almost the exact same thing to him, just kind of sending the car around. It does seem like you want to take a shallow entry down into turn 1. Honestly, turn 1 and 3 from here on out. Because, yeah, you see he leaves just enough open. And I've seen this multiple times here late in the race, where if you leave that half a lane, the car behind is going to try and fill the gap.
It'll happen quick, and I think a no better example than what we saw to Maines, right? Maines was frustrated because he felt like hit from behind, and then what did he do about 5 laps later? Hit a car from behind to take the spot back, right? Short track racing, right? That's part of it. Opportunities present themselves. You could be really moral when it happens to you, and then when you have the opportunity, maybe I'm a little bit less judgmental on how somebody makes the pass. That's the beauty of short track racing, maybe at least from our perspective up in the box, because well, when they're yelling on the radio, they're not yelling at us, at least for now.
It's so much easier to enjoy the popcorn from the sidelines, but I mean, we're here for the entertainment, and honestly, I'd say we've been entertained here late in this race. 38 laps to go. This is where it's really coming down to it. And yeah, gets down to the inside. And again, some of this is just ghost contact that we've been seeing from time to time in this style of racing. But I kind of understand it at this stage, if I'm honest, Evan. Like I said, it's go time. The drivers know that they've got to make these moves. In the case of Garrett, he has to make up a lot of positions to get back to a spot where he can try and fight for the win.
He does. He's got to get up there, and he's running out of time, right? This kind of harpens back to what I had talked about 100 laps ago, right? When we get late in this race, these yellows are going to be frustrating because they're taking opportunities away from you, right? When you get a yellow at lap 2, well, who really cares if we don't restart till lap 7, okay? But when we're at 37 laps to go and we get a yellow, you're not restarting till lap 32, right? I mean, it's taking significant portions away, and it's going to be a 1/6 of the race gone with that yellow, and then it'll be a 1/3 of the race and half the race, right? As we get later and later, these yellows are going to be more consequential, less opportunities for drivers to attempt to make these passes. That is going to be the challenge. That means that they're going to be more aggressive now than they have been at any point since we dropped the green flag about 1 hour and 56 minutes ago. One thing's for certain, it is going to be an exciting end to this 2023 iRacing Winter Derby special event. And we're happy that you've been locked in with us on this Friday evening here on RaceSpotTV. The pace car will dive low. It's the bright yellow number 4 of Parker Retzlaff in control. Green flag back in the air. It's a good jump for him. The 9 car, Jordowski, going to try to challenge for P2. Can't get to the inside of Kuhn.
That's a good start there from Kuhn. I was kind of worried he left the door open a little bit there, but Jordowski fighting on the inside of Garrett Maines, who's not taking no for an answer. Actually gets a bit of a nose ahead. Car looks strong right now.
Does look strong. He's not allowing the 1 car to get away, and the fight for 3rd, it continues on to behind. Maines almost clear of the 9. Jordowski can't do it. Now off of 4, he does. So clear for 3rd now, Garrett Maines, as he continues his march back to the front.
So he's got a gap of about 0.4 of a second to make up on the top 2. Can he run them down as we look a little farther back here? Some of the side-by-side action between Pataska and Pierce. This is for 7th.
7th place. The battle we watch now is the upper hand seemingly will be in favor of Pataska on the bottom. But that 20 of Chase Pierce trying to make the outside work. It hasn't been bad tonight, hasn't been great tonight. Drivers have been able to hold their own, but not really advance a ton on the outside of the racetrack. It appears hoping to change that now, because if he can't get Pataska, then the 15 of Coaster, the 2 of Smith, the 7 of Hogan, all going to be lining up to take a crack. And as the 11 clears him, right on cue, Coaster to the inside now to fight the 20.
Yeah, he's not looking good in this situation. It's just a line of cars. They all know it. They smell blood in the water. They're going to try and get up to the bumper of the car ahead just so that he can't find a position. Because, again, when you got an easy spot in your hands, especially in short track racing, you got to take it.
You got to jump on the opportunity when you can. And that 5 car being aggressive topside. Garrett Lowe second in line on the top. Going to be difficult for him to make moves from there, so he'll sidestep down and get under the 20. He abandoned ship as that 20 machine of Chase Pierce just can't find any help up topside. Put up a good fight with the 2 initially, and it has been all bad news since then.
Yeah, so now the 5 of Garrett Lowe going to demote him one more. Looks like Jake Fisher's not going to have too much time. Finally, maybe an opening. Nope. Down to the inside for Casey Tucker. And I think maybe he stopped the bleeding there in, looks like, 14th position.
And meanwhile, we watch the gap up front. Parker Retzlaff, Ryan Kuhn combined. They have led 202 of the 275 laps in this race so far. They want the opportunity to fight it out for the race win amongst themselves. 9/10 back. Maines watches on from third. Maines lost 0.05 of a second that time by. So the top 2 currently the best 2 cars on track.
I've been watching the lap times between the top 2 and Garrett Maines, and yeah, consistently he has been losing time to them. Doesn't seem to have the pace at this stage, and he's on the same strategy, same age tires as his rivals in front of him. So he's going to have to figure out how to make that thing just a little bit quicker here at the end, unless he is actually trying to save his stuff, anticipating a yellow here.
That is the objective as well. I don't know how many 30-something long green flag wraps we've seen so far in this race, but survey would say maybe not likely that this thing's done quite yet, but I'm not going to be the one to jinx it this time. We'll see how this race plays out as the top 2 enjoy clean racetrack up the road. Top 5 cars within about 1.5 seconds of one another. We've got to jump back to the exit of 2 to find the first fight. That's got the 2 of Joel Smith topside, but the 5 of Garrett Lowe and the 16 of Jake Fisher just made a move.
Fisher up to 11th now on that one, up 17 spots since the start of this race. Almost looks like maybe he's following Garrett Lowe, because I've seen him make a couple passes now where as soon as the 5 gets by, he follows suit.
And for Kuhn as well, is he saving? Is he going to try to put the pressure on the 4? Maybe put Parker Retzlaff in a position to look in the mirror, overdrive that race car a little bit, and then wait to make a move late? Or is this everything that the 1 car Ryan Kuhn has so far? Retzlaff has just overtaken Kuhn for the most laps led in this race. Retzlaff will now have led 107 this time by. Kuhn led 103 much earlier on, so very clearly the 2 best cars all race long, first and second, less than 20 laps to go at 5 Flags.
We know Ryan Kuhn was involved in a pretty big incident earlier on. I'm trying to recall and see if Parker has had any major wrecks in this race, because right now Ryan Kuhn might be dealing with a slightly ill-handling car. He might have lost just a little bit of speed, although I don't think that second one I would really bet on, considering how hard they're pushing up at the front. But will he have enough underneath him to try and attack? I mean, look at how clean that yellow 4 is. Yeah,
and the yellow number 4 makes it very easy to see the bodywork. I don't know if there's a scratch on it. And the same cannot be said for the front bumper of the 1 of Ryan Kuhn. We've talked about the incidents that he's found himself in tonight, and clearly the damage not holding him all the way back, but is it playing enough of a factor on the handling? Is it affecting the downforce to the front of that race car? Is it making it tight? Is it making it loose? It seems like the 1 has been pushing up the hill a little bit more on entry, but maybe it's just the 1 changing his line, trying to prioritize a good run off the corner. It's tricky to say, But one thing I can observe is they've doubled their gap to Garrett Maines, who is now 1.8 seconds back. It is a 2-horse race at 13 to go.
I'm pretty certain it is a case of him trying to diamond off the corner here. He's looking for the corner exit. It's always easier to try and pass a car in a straight than a corner. So what he's trying to do is set himself up, get the momentum on the straightaway, and get the nose inside so that he can finish the pass down to the next one.
I continue to glance up. They've got a straightaway worth until there's traffic, but it will not matter. Caution flag is out. And we will have a restart inside of 10 laps to go.
And we got our first 2 victims, actually, of the incident limit. Ryan Zima and Timmy Pacioli, both involved in the wreck, and both just disappear into the ether with 11, or I guess it was 12 laps to go when it happened to them, which is an absolute shame, so close to the end.
Yeah, both of those cars go away right away. You'll see the contact in a battle for 17th and 18th position, and they're gone. That is the incident limit. Those cars immediately removed from the racetrack. And tough way to go, especially in a battle for 17th and 18th spot that probably didn't need to happen. But again, I think that's kind of a collection of what had happened all night long over the last 2 hours and change for them. Unfortunately, their night does come to an end. And maybe now, normally I would say, yellow flag Joe late in the race, that's going to make things more exciting. I don't know. I was really looking forward to the Retzlaff and Kuhn battle. The one had kind of taken all those laps to set himself right on the bumper of the 4, get him in the exact position that he wanted to. Now he's going to have to deal with Maines and Dranowski and Boyd, and I just didn't see anything on that last run that would tell me that anybody third on the back can win this race on speed. Now, I preface that by saying on speed because all it takes is a stray bumper here, a door bang there, and you never know. And that is in the DNA of short track racing. But I think very clearly Retzlaff and Kuhn the fastest 2, and it would be nice to see those best 2 be able to fight this out here.
Yeah, I think what this has done is made the likelihood of a green-white checkers go up immensely, and it's exactly because of what you said. The bumpers are coming out. The chrome horn is likely going to be there. And it's not just for the win. It could be anybody in the field that really just wants one better spot for the finish. As we go double file, it looks like, yeah, I think the lights... Oh, no, lights are not out quite yet. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, just the nature of the beast, not everybody behind will stay well behaved. So it might not even just be the leaders. Any one of these, let's see, we've got, I think, 23 cars left, could bring out this yellow.
We'll see if that's going to be the case towards the end. Do we get to go green to the end? How many more restarts are necessary? And depending on how late in this race a possible yellow may fly, do we get pushed into overtime? Those 3 attempts at a green-white checker finish do sit there waiting in the wings. If Retzlaff and Kuhn are going to decide this now, they will need 6 laps of green flag racing to the end to decide it. Retzlaff has been so good as the control car all night. He once again lines up on the inside of row 1 with Kuhn to his outside in second. Maines, Dranowski, Boyd the top 5. Green flag in the air. It's not a good start for the 1 car. Here comes Maines. He'll make it a fight for P2.
He knows this is his only good chance to try and take this win. He needs to be up with them and try and fight hard. He's going to stick to the inside through 3 and 4, but this honestly hurts his chances because look at the 4 start to stretch away.
Kuhn does clear. I think we all expected that to be the case, but that little holdup, that lap and a half of battling, courtesy of Garrett Maines, was that enough to give Retzlaff the gap he needed? Because Kuhn now not on the bumper at Retzlaff like he was before the last yellow. He's going to need to close the gap in, get himself in position, and then decide what move he wants to make. And if something happens between the leaders, that battle for third, critical as well. Maines and Boyd going to fight for third. They want to be there if something happens at 3 to go.
Oh, and Rocky's looking really fast. In fact, he gets into the inside of the 3 quite easily down in turn 1. I don't think Garrett Maines has much left here at the end of the race.
Maines, Boyd still side by side. 2 laps to go into Pensacola. Kuhn still about a car length off of the back bumper of Parker Retzlaff. Is he going to get there in time? White flag this time.
1 to go. I don't think he's close enough. We're going to finish under green, which is impressive in this race, but he's got to get right up on top of him now.
Boyd wins the battle for third. He watches on. One last opportunity for Ryan Kuhn, who will not get to the bumper. And off of 4, Retzlaff slides. They go side by side. But Parker Retzlaff, with style points across the line, wins the top split of the iRacing Winter Derby.
Wow. It came down after 300 laps to a quarter of a tenth of a second between them. I'm curious if Parker did that on purpose or if he really gunned it hard just to make sure that Kuhn couldn't catch him and maybe overdid it a little bit as he celebrates at the start-finish line.
And it was maybe a half slide and maybe 3/4 showmanship, in fact, at a quarter of a slide. But the 4 got a little bit loose off the corner. The 1 got looking to the inside, but it was not enough. And the showmanship and the burnouts on the front straightaway as Parker Retzlaff is your race winner here tonight at Five Flag Speedway. We go trackside and take a look at your RaceSpot full race results tonight. Retzlaff's final margin of victory, 0.075 seconds over Ryan Kuhn, who comes home in second. Those drivers lead a combined 228 laps on the night and to finish 1-2 ahead of Rocky Boyd, who did win out that late battle with Maines to finish third in this race. Drunowski also stole a late one. He'll come home fourth before the aforementioned Garrett Maines, who has to settle for P5. Nathan Coaster comes home in P6 with Dallas Pataska in 7th. Tracy Petter comes home in 8th position. Garrett Lowe finished in 9th, and Jake Fisher rounds out your top 10.
Boyd Hogan was 11th tonight with Chase Pierce finishing in the 12th position. Matt Brinson, starting from 24th, winds up in 13th. Joel Smith was behind him exactly where he started, interestingly enough, in 14th. And Casey Tucker from 27th to 15th, although I'm sure he would have liked a little better than that. Cabe McClenny visiting pit lane 16 times tonight, more than anybody else, and still finishing in P16. It was Dalton Collins in 17th spot with Trevor Trago in 18th. The last car on the lead lap, Wesley Parker was 19th, 2 laps down, and Justin Crow 20th, also 2 laps down.
Well, Steele Langford, the only other driver on the leaderboard who finished this race under power. He comes home in 21st position, up 9 laps. Everybody else on the hook. That'll include Ryan Zima, Timmy Pacioli. You got Bailey Dutton and Tyler Davala through the top 25. And then Jonathan Adkins, Mark Keteman, Nathan Lyons, Blake Thornburg, and Brian Narducci, 26th through 30th. It's looked at the bottom at your RaceSpot full race results. Kuhn, fastest lap of the night, lap 254 with a 16.068. He was pushing late in this race, but just could not get that same handle on this, Joe, like he did in the first half. And despite all the yellows and the wrecks, the trials and tribulation, the strategy and the mistakes, at the end, this race decided with a great head-to-head clean fight between the 2 best cars of the night.
I was so glad we got to see that. I kind of didn't want to see us get green-white checkers and get that constant loop going. So fantastic tip of the hat to both of them, because honestly, it was a good, respectful fight between both of them there at the end.
It was, and that'll bring this split of the iRacing Winter Derby special event to a close, Joe. But we talk about this special events calendar this week, not even done yet. For those at home who are part of the service, there are still plenty of opportunities to get on track and take a rip for 300 laps around Five Flag Speedway throughout the rest of the weekend.
Exactly. I fear I won't be taking part myself, mostly because I don't have the skills here in these cars, but also because I've got some plans for the holidays tomorrow. But yes, if you want to take part, absolutely. And you can do as many of them as you like as well. So definitely encourage people to do that. And let's not forget, we still have the Chili Bowl to wrap up this iRacing special events coming in December, which is an absolute treat.
It really has been a fun year since this all started with the iRacing Roar back on the 13th of January, and about 11 months later, We've got a couple weeks off, which is rare for this special events calendar, but on December the 17th, it's the iRacing Chili Bowl, which will close out this 2023 iRacing special events calendar. We encourage you to participate in it on the service, and if not, we hope that you join us here when we broadcast it on RaceSpotTV. But until next time, that is going to do it for us here tonight from Pensacola. On behalf of our entire broadcast team at RaceSpotTV, for our producer downstairs, Dustin Ellis, for myself, Evan Pasoko, and for Joe Peak, I want to thank you for tuning in and congratulate Parker Retzlaff. Dominic Carr at the end of the night wins it all as he's victorious in the iRacing Winter Derby. The iRacing special events calendar rolls on. The Chili Bowl is next. That race and every race of the iRacing special event season can be found exclusively here on RaceSpot TV. Till next time, good night from Pensacola.